My name is Lynn Kenyon, and on behalf of the rest of the coordinating board staff, I want to welcome you to the Financial Aid Workshop for Independent Institutions. We are going to have about 30 or so participants here at the coordinating board. We also have online participation. We're broadcasting this so that those that were not able to travel into the Austin area could take advantage of this. We're also taping it so that it will show later, or it will be available to you later via a link on our website. So move this on. The agenda today, we're going to be talking about the programs that affect you at the institute, at the independent institutional level. We're going to be talking about TEG, work study. We're going to look at the GNSP website so you can see what resources that you have available there. We're going to look at the loan programs. We are not going to have a legislative update session in this one like we did with the public institution workshop, because there really are not any legislative proposals that are going forth right now with TEG. So that's a good thing. So we're just going to talk about the way things are. And we're also going to talk about the financial aid database report later on this afternoon. So that's basically what we're going to cover in the agenda. If you are watching online, we would very much appreciate it if you will send an email to the email address listed right here on the slide. It's fa10-4-12 at thecb.state.tx.us. If you'll send us an email just to let us know that you are online and listening, that will help us in meeting one of our performance measures. Training is one of our performance measures, and it's very important that we can document that we have at least touched all of the institutions in some form or fashion with some kind of training, so that will help us know that you're online and you are listening. Handouts. The audience here, if you didn't bring handouts with you, we made them available yesterday or day before yesterday on the GNSP website. If you didn't get a chance to copy those and bring those with you, if you'll just raise your hand and we'll make sure that you get a copy of those handouts. For our online viewers, they are available at the address that's listed right here on the slide. If you'll go to that address and look under the Training, Webinars, and Workshops tab, you will see the PowerPoints, you'll see the additional handouts, and you can have access to them that way. The other thing it's very important that we would like for you to do today, whether you're online or you're here at the coordinating board, is to complete the evaluation form. Again, for our performance measure, it's very important that we get feedback from you. Plus, we want to hear what you have to say about positives, negatives, what we can do to make these training sessions better for you. You could tell us what we did well. That's always nice to hear. But if you'll complete the evaluation form, we will. You may have evaluation forms with you in your packet. If not, we have some that we will pass out later today for you to complete here. For our online viewers, the evaluation form is included in the introduction, or it's, I think, with the agenda and contact information on the online forms that you can print. So we would very much like for you to send that evaluation in. You can either send it in with an email, or you can mail it to us, whatever is most convenient for you. A couple additional things that I would just like to mention before we actually get started with discussing the TEG program. It is extremely important that if you are not subscribed to the GNSP distribution list, that you subscribe to the GNSP distribution list. This is our official form of communication with you about deadlines, about your allocations, about a lot of important information that you need to be aware of. If you're not subscribed, if you'll go to the address listed right there under subscribe to the GNSP distribution list, it will give you instructions on how to subscribe. Anybody at your institution can go there and follow the instructions on how to subscribe. If you want your entire office to be subscribed, that's cool. If you, as the director, just want to be the one subscribed, that at least you need to be on that distribution list so that you're receiving the communication from our office. Another wonderful resource, I believe, that we make available to you, and I'll talk a little bit more about this afternoon, is the GNSP information website. And again, the address is right there. We'll talk a little bit more about that this afternoon, but we try our best to post important information on that website as well so that you have access to that anytime that you need it. Contact information. This is our general contact information for our office. Both phone numbers if you're in the Austin area or if you're outside the Austin area. This is a general email address that you can use that will come in, and we will distribute it, the question, to the person in our office or at the agency that needs to handle that question. Also, though, attached or within your handouts, we have put in, along with the agenda and the evaluation form, there's a contact list in there that gives you more specific contact information about the person who handles a certain program, their email address, their phone extension, etc., so that you have a name and a number where you can get to that person. And I think that is, housekeeping. That's an important topic. Housekeeping. We do have coffee and water and a few snacks, it looks like, available over here for those that are participating with us here on site. Restrooms right outside this hallway. If you've never been here before, if you just go back the way you came in, and in the middle of this hallway right here is both a men's and a women's restroom. So that's where that will go. We will take breaks throughout the day so that you can go, but if you need to get up and leave, just feel free to do that. Lunch, we will break. Let me see what time. We're going to break around noon for lunch, and we will resume again about 1 o'clock. It may be a little bit different when we get down to that point. The public workshop, we actually had a little bit longer than an hour because it went a little bit faster than we thought, so that may happen today. I believe Teresa had a listing of places that you can go to grab a bite to eat for lunch. Probably the fastest one with the most variety is going to be the Luby's. That's just less than a block right down here by the coordinating board. But there are also fast food places. But Teresa had a listing. If you didn't pick one up, it'll be at the table back there, and you can pick that up to see if there's something on there that you might like to take advantage of for lunch. Microphones. Because we are webcasting this and because we're taping it, if we welcome your questions. If it's a question from the audience here at the coordinating board, if you'll wait till we can get a microphone to you, because if you don't say it into the microphone, their online listeners will not be able to hear it. So we need to be sensitive to that. So we do have someone here that will be paying attention if you raise your hand, and we'll try to get you a microphone so that you can ask that question. Our online listeners, and I just realized I did not... I mentioned the email address, but I'm not sure I said this is where you can send questions. I don't know what I said about the email address when I was talking about it, but online listeners, if you have a question that you want to send us, and we will ask it as the presentations are going along, it's that FA10-4-12 at thecb.state.tx.us. I think before I ask you to send an email to let us know you're listening, this is also the email that you can send a question so that we can present it to the person who's presenting so we can get you an answer to that question. And I think, other than, again, saying welcome, we're very happy to have you here, and we hope you get a lot out of the information that we have available to you today. And I will turn it over now to Raphael, who will start out the discussions about the TEG program.
I don't kill myself first. Good morning, everyone. I'm Rafael Villarreal, and I'm going to be discussing the main qualities of the TEG program right here. Again, if you have any questions or anything while I'm talking about the information, Mr. Pond back there, Ken Pond, has a microphone. Just raise your hand, and he'll bring it to you. You can ask a question for me, okay? All right. I control this. There we go. In this presentation, we're going to be discussing our initial year awards, renewal year awards, and the awarding process, which is some things to consider when you're making decisions on how much to give to a student, as well as the process to follow when you're requesting funds from this agency. And we'll start off talking about the initial year awards. In this part of the presentation, I'm going to be talking about discussing who's eligible to receive an initial TEG award, the enrollment requirements to get this award, also talking about the using professional judgment to grant somebody an award who doesn't meet initial qualifications, and eligibility requirements that an IY award recipient has to meet to be able to qualify to get their first renewal award. All right, to begin with, to be eligible for a TEG award, a student has to be classified as a Texas resident using as determined by the core residency questions, or they can be a National Merit Scholarship finalist who's receiving at least a $1,000 competitive scholarship through your institution. Question. If a student applied for aid using the TASFA and does not have a Social Security number, can the student be considered eligible for a TEG award? And the answer is yes. Social Security number is not necessary. However, a student does have to meet one of these two residency eligibility requirements. They do have to meet at least one of them. Now, in addition to the residency requirement, students have to a student eligible for an award has to be required to be paid more tuition than is required at a comparable public college or university. They cannot be receiving any form of athletic scholarship during the semesters in which they're receiving a TEG award, and the student has to demonstrate financial need. Question. A student supporting one of our athletic programs will be receiving an athletic scholarship this coming year. She is not a school athlete and won't be competing in any sports programs. Can you give her a TEG award? The answer, no. Program rules prohibit a TEG award recipient from receiving an athletic scholarship in the same semester. So even though in this instance the student is not an actual athlete, they're just supporting the athletic program, because they're getting an athletic scholarship, it disqualifies them from receiving TEG in that same semester. Additionally, eligible recipients have to be registered with Selective Service or be exempt. And of course, the student can be charged no less than the regular tuition that the other students in your institution are being charged. Another question. If a male student enrolled before the age of 18 without registering for Selective Service, can the student still be eligible for a TEG award? And the answer is yes. Since the student wasn't old enough to register when he enrolled, the student can be considered exempt and could be eligible to receive an initial TEG award. To be eligible the next year, though, they're going to have to provide proof to you that they did register with Selective Service. So you'll have to watch out for that. You'll have to make sure that they did finally register. Now, as far as enrollment requirements, program rules require that a student enroll at least 3/4 time in a degree plan leading to their first associate's, bachelor's, master's, doctoral, or professional degree. Their first one. They cannot be pursuing a second degree of the type they already have. Question. Can a student enrolled in a degree plan leading to ordination be considered eligible to receive a TEG award? The answer on that is no. Program rules do prohibit students enrolled in a degree plan leading to ordination from receiving a TEG award. Cannot receive TEG monies. Now, I'm sure everybody's aware of professional judgment. But in this case, as explained here, that if a student is an event of a hardship or for other good cause, an otherwise ineligible student or eligible student can be allowed to receive a TEG award, in this instance, while they're enrolled for an equivalent of less than 3/4 time. That's one of the main requirement for an IY recipient. Now, again, each institution who is supposed to have a hardship policy in place, they have to have it available for public review upon request. And if you do decide to grant a student a hardship decision, a professional judgment call, that decision must be documented in the student's file for further review, audit purposes, as need be, as may be required. Some of the hardship conditions could include a severe illness or other debilitating condition affecting their ability to enroll minimum 3/4 time. They could be responsible for taking care of somebody who's sick and that's affecting their ability to attend the required number of classes, or even that they're enrolling below 3/4 time in order to complete the degree plan. That can also be considered a hardship. It's based on your institution's decision. Now, at the end of the year that a student receives their initial award, their IY award, a student only has to be meeting institution SAP requirements to be considered eligible to receive their first renewal award next year. Question. A student who received her IY award at another college last year is transferring to our school. She ended the year meeting their SAP requirements, but not our school's SAP requirements. Can she receive her first RY award at our school? And the answer? Yes. The program rules stipulate that IY award recipients must meet the SAP at the school at which they receive their award, not a school to which they're transferring. So that's one thing to consider. As long as the schools they're coming from met their SAP requirements, you can consider them to be eligible to receive a renewal award at your school. Now, here we go. Now, we have a student classified as a junior who is eligible to receive a TEG award. He has not received an award in the past. Can a student be given an initial award after their first year in college? Who thinks yes? Who thinks no? Wow, majority. Okay. The answer is yes. A student can receive an initial award at any time after becoming a college student. It's not like some of the other programs where if they don't get it their first year in college, they're no longer eligible. TEG is not set up that way. They can get their first award at any point in time of their college career. Now, next question. If a student is not Pell eligible because their EFC is too great, would the student still be eligible for TEG? Who thinks yes? Excellent. Who thinks no? Answer? Yes. TEG does not have an EFC limitation. The recipient does still have to demonstrate financial need, however, but there is no EFC limitation. You can't have too great, too less of an EFC. They just have to demonstrate financial need as one of the requirements. And another question, last one. A student is pursuing her second bachelor's degree at our school. She has never received a TEG award. Can we give her an IY TEG award? Any guesses? No. You're correct. She can't use TEG award monies to pursue a degree that she's already obtained. Even though she's never received it, she's going after her second bachelor's degree. TEG monies cannot be allowed to do that. All right, now we're going to go into renewal awards. Any questions about initial awards? No? Okay. Renewal awards then.
Excuse me,
Yes.
Raphael, I have a question.
Hold, please. No.
How does a undocumented student meet the selective service requirement?
They do have to sign a form that states that it's their intention to obtain a Social Security number. If I'm not mistaken, they do have to sign something.
There is a form for them to fill out and submit to the selective service registration folk, and then they respond with a notice indicating, yes, this person has registered, and therefore, based on that from the selective service office, you can allow them to meet that requirement. So you can probably go, as you said, in the front end, start doing the process, but you shouldn't release any money until you have that confirmation from the selective service office.
Cool.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Any other questions? All right. For our RY awards, I'm going to be talking about the eligibility and enrollment requirements, how a student is what they're supposed to do to maintain eligibility for a renewal award, Again, I'll mention professional judgment hardship decisions. I'll also discuss the maximum timeframes that students are eligible to receive TEG awards.
Raphael, I have
Yes.
an online question.
Yes.
What about dual degrees in TEG eligibility, prior bachelor's but no prior master's, and in a dual bachelor-master's program?
That's a very good question. That one I don't know. And the one that they're pursuing a bachelor's and a master's at the same time?
In this situation, it just says, what about dual degrees and TEG eligibility? The student has a prior bachelor's but no prior master's and is now in a dual bachelor-master's combo program.
My initial response would be in that situation, no, because they would also obtain another bachelor's. But I'd have to actually defer for a legal opinion, I guess, on that one, get an answer from above.
Do you want to add anything?
Now, I haven't heard this question before, but it would seem to me that if she can't get the master's degree without getting the dual degree, that's probably acceptable. But it's a good question, and it's not one we've had, so let us take a look at it. So Raphael and I slightly disagree on how that might go, and we'll take a look at it and get something out to everybody.
And stay tuned for the next Q&A. I will include that question.
Exactly. Hey, good question. Very good. Thank you out there. Okay. All renewal award recipients have to continue to meet the same initial year award eligibility requirements: residency, financial need, paying the same tuition, selective service registration, all that same sort of stuff. They have to meet the same requirements as they did in the past. Now, again, as I just mentioned a little bit earlier, initial year award recipients have to end the year meeting school SAP requirements to qualify to receive their first renewal award. Now, again, if a student did not meet their school SAP requirements, the institution has the authority, has the ability to offer a professional judgment decision to grant the student their first renewal award next year. And we'll talk a little bit about this later. Some of the other eligibility requirements to receive a renewal award. See, at the end of the year that a student receives a renewal award, they do have to start meeting program SAP requirements, such as a minimum 75% completion rate, minimum 2.50 cumulative GPA, and they have to complete a minimum of 24 semester credit hours if they're an undergraduate, and a minimum of 18 semester credit hours if they are a graduate student. Question. We have a first-year doctoral student who only received TEG awards as an undergraduate. Does she only have to meet IY award requirements to receive her first award as a doctoral student? The answer? No. She had to meet program SAP requirements at the end of her last undergraduate year in which she received an award to be eligible to receive an award as a doctoral student, unless, of course, school decides to give her a professional judgment decision. You always have that option to do that. Again, you can use professional judgment decisions to give an award to a renewal award recipient who's enrolled for less than three-quarter time or who ended a prior year not meeting the minimum GPA completion rate or hours completed requirements that the program stipulates. Again, remember, any hardship decisions you make for a student have to be documented in the student's file for later review if necessary or if requested. All right, now, time frames. First, I'm going to talk about the undergraduate students. Now, undergraduate students that are enrolled in a degree plan of 4 years or less have a maximum of 5 years to receive an award, beginning with the semester that they got their first award. And this is current enrollment, as not the degree in which they enrolled in when they got their first award, but the degree that they're in their 5th year. Okay. Now, an undergraduate student has 6 years from the start of the semester in which they receive their initial award if they're enrolled in a degree plan of more than 4 years. And again, that's as of the 6th year, not when they started, but what they are in at that time. You know how students sometimes may change their major. They go from a 4-year plan to a 5-year plan. They now have an extra year of TEG eligibility. And again, Students cannot receive awards beyond these 5 or 6 years unless your school does grant them a hardship to extend this period of eligibility. Now, with graduate students, it's a little bit different. Graduate students can continue to receive an award as long as they meet the program eligibility requirements, the residency, financial needs, stuff like that, and they meet the program minimum requirements, GPA, hours completed, and completion rate requirements. They don't have a time limit. They can continue receiving awards up until they get their graduate degree, be it their doctoral or their master's. Once they get the one, then of course they can no longer pursue a degree of the same type. Now let's just take a look at an example here about the limitations here. Okay, suppose a student received their IY award for the fall 2000 semester. And then the student took 3 years off from school. And then they came back and enrolled for the fall 2011 semester. They were given a TEG award, and they enrolled while they were in a 4-year degree plan. So essentially they went from 2007 all the way to 2011. 5 years means that their last eligible semester to receive an award is the spring 2012 semester. If you think about it, it's fall 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010. Fall 2011 begins their 5th year of eligibility, so the final semester is spring 2012. Now again, award eligibility ends 5 consecutive years from the start of the semester in which the student received an initial TEG award, unless the student, again, is enrolled in a degree plan of more than 4 years. So the student has, again, 6 years of consecutive eligibility. So in this case, then, if the student enrolled fall 2011 in a degree plan of 5 years, their last semester of eligibility would be the spring 2013 semester. They still have 2 more years of eligibility, so to speak. And here, I've got like a little chart kind of easily point out to you for you to take a look at to see when the 5 years, when the 6 years of eligibility ends. For students that enrolled this year, fall 2012, they have through spring 2017 if they're enrolled in a degree plan of 4 years or less. They have until spring 2018 if they're enrolled in a program of more than 4 years. That's just for your future reference. You can take a look at that whenever. All right. Now we have a transfer student from another private institution. Since she's new to our school, is it okay to give her an IY award as long as she meets the IY award requirements? Who says yes? All right, who says no? Answer is no. How do you know if she received TEG awards at the other school? You're going to have to make sure you check with the school and verify, did she receive an initial or a renewal award? And if she did, you have to verify that she's meeting the appropriate eligibility requirements. Again, your school still has the option to issue her a professional judgment if you determine her case to have hardship and whatever. You still have that option. You always have that option. But it's always best to check to make sure in the beginning that you're following program rules. All right. Now we'll talk about the awarding process. I'm going to give you talk about the maximum award amounts, tuition differential, prorated awards, and what to do when you're requesting monies or refunding monies to the agency. All right, for the current fiscal year, the maximum TEG award amount has to be the least of the student's financial need, the student's tuition differential, or $3,518. Now, please note that it's only undergraduate students that are eligible to receive exceptional need award monies. And again, students with exceptional need are defined as those students with an EFC of less than or equal to $1,000. They can receive up to 150% of the maximum award. For FY13, that maximum award amount is $5,277. That's the most they can receive with exceptional need. Just remember, though, that even the exceptional need award amount is still limited by the student's financial need or tuition differential. Even the exceptional need award amount can't exceed either one of those if one of those two is lower than $5,277. Now, Now, tuition differential, it is defined as the difference between the tuition paid at a private institution and the tuition the student would have to pay to attend a comparable Texas public institution. Fees are not included when we calculate tuition differential. They should not be included, just the tuition rates. Now, something that changed for this year is that we required schools to start using SACS level classifications to identify comparable public institutions to which to compare their rates to determine the tuition differentials. And now the SACS levels, of course, are outlined right here, levels 1 through 6, depending upon that. Yeah, I'm sure you can take a look at that. And if you have any questions about that, you can send an email to me or send an inquiry, and I can help you understand that a little bit better. Try to, at least. So what we determined for fiscal year 2013 is demonstrated right here. For the different SACS level classifications, we determined the undergrad tuition rates for 30 hours, 24, and 18, and listed them here, and also the graduate tuition rates for 20 hours. Okay, and these are the hours that you use for students taking this number of hours at your university. Now, for law schools, the tuition rates are as follows for FY13. Public tuition rate for resident law students is $886 per semester hour, and for non-resident law school students, it's $1,242 per semester hour. Now, prorated awards. Awards to students, be they undergraduate or graduate, if they're granted a professional judgment decision and they enroll in fewer than the required number of hours, the minimum 3/4 time, their award must be prorated according to the schedule. Again, if the student is, even if they're given a professional judgment decision and they're enrolled still a minimum of 3/4 time, they are still eligible for up to 100% of the maximum award amount. If they are enrolled half-time, they are only allowed to get at most 50% of the award maximum. And if they're enrolled less than 1/4 time, the maximum award amount they can get is 25% of the maximum award amount that they are eligible to receive. Again, if they're given a professional judgment decision, this is how you prorate the award. They have to be prorated in this manner. Now, when we're requesting funds from the agency, what you have to do is submit to this agency the completed funds request form, and you send it to the email address that's listed on this slide right here. It's teg@thecb.state, spelled out, .tx.us. And we're going to take a look at the copy of the form right here. This is what the funds request form looks like. The official one, to submit an official request, you have to use the FY13 funds request form to submit your request. And what you would do is start out with, of course, is fill out the date that you're requesting it, your FICE code, and the name of your institution at the top. And then for the 3 contacts listed here, of course, please put each of their names, their email addresses, and their phone numbers. Now, looking at the actual request form, you can see some of the programs mentioned there. Being private institutions, the only line you have to worry about is the top one, the TEG request line. So what you want to do here, start off with, is the amount that you're requesting. In this instance, you're requesting $200,000. Okay? The next column, year-to-date cumulative number of recipients. This is the number of students who have received monies or will be receiving monies with the amount that you're requesting, not what you're expecting to give or hoping to give out, that you're planning to give out, 600 awards, but so far you've only requested money for 400 of them. You would put that lower number there. Again, put the number of students that actually have received or will be receiving award monies with what you're requesting. So in this situation, it's, say, 137 students. The next column is total allocation. You just enter your amount that's been allocated to you for the year. In this instance, we're just saying $1.2 million. Okay? Now, the next column, year-to-date funds requested. If you've requested funds in the past, you would include that number in this column and add it to what you're requesting at this point in time. So, say for this situation, again, enter the total you've requested. In this situation's example, suppose you've already requested $350,000 and now you're requesting $200,000. You would enter $550,000 into this field box. And then what the form will automatically do is calculate your remaining balance for the year. And in this situation, it's $650,000 still remaining to be spent. The form does that for you automatically. Ken, question? Sorry. Stop looking at my presentation, Ken. Yes, ma'am.
Raphael, if we've transferred $10,000 from TEG to Texas Work Study, do you want us to put the original allocation or the new allocation?
Your new allocation, please. Thank you. No problem. Thank you. Good question. Don't give her the microphone again. Any other questions, anybody? No? Okay. All right, continuing along. Every so often, like once or twice a week, I'll actually process the funds request forms that I've received. Doing so, go into the process here at the agency. Eventually what happens is that we submit a request to the State Comptroller's Office to pay out the monies that are being requested. And of course, the State Comptroller's Office will do that via electronic funds transfer. We will notify you by email of the date and the amount of the deposit, letting you know that it's out there, that's coming your way, should be there in a certain number of days. All right, we'll notify you of that. And again, just remember, as program rules, any funds that you receive for TEG, they have to be dispersed to students or applied to a student's account within 5 working days of receipt. That is a program requirement. If you can't do that, then awards should be refunded to us to hold in the meantime for you. We have to hold on to it and send it back to you when you re-request it. And again, something I just discussed. Agency money is not dispersed to an eligible recipient, must be returned to this agency. And award monies that are given, that you find out that you give monies to a student who turns out to be ineligible, before you send it back to us, if you can find another recipient of those monies and you can give them those monies within 5 days of finding the error, you are more than welcome to do that. But again, if you cannot find somebody who's eligible, or you just want to refund the monies and start over again, do something later, you can do that as well. And as Lynn discussed before, refund information about the how to send it to us electronically, how to take care of everything to include. Refund information can be found at the Grants and Special Programs website, which is listed right here at the bottom of this slide. That information, to be quite honest, actually is also on the last page of the funds request form. I think it's a 3-page form. Refund information, where to send it, how to send it, that is on the final page of the request forms. All right, question. Since undergraduate students at our school pay the same tuition when taking 12 through 18 hours a semester, when calculating tuition differentials, we only need to look at the 24-hour column on the tuition differential table for our SACS level, correct? Anybody? Yes or no? No. Tuition differentials need to be calculated per student based on the actual number of hours that they're taking. The 30, the 24, and the 18 were just some of the more common number of hours that a student would take. If a student is taking any other number of hours, you would actually divide that number by, say, with the number 30, divide it by 30, and then multiply it by the number of hours the student is taking to get that student's tuition differential rate to be used in the calculation. Sir.
May I ask why? When I look at this, especially with the higher cost private schools, we're blowing out the differential anyway with a maximum TEG, so why go through the steps of an individual calculation if we're so far above it anyway?
It's just following program rules. That's just that the way program rules are stipulated to accurately determine a tuition differential is based on the number of hours that the student has taken, not on a general number. Yes?
This is, I think if you wanted to plug in the maximum there and not do an actual calculation, that I don't see a harm to the program.
Okay.
As long as you're not using the small number, which would increase your differential, your eligibility, but rather using the higher one, I don't think that's a problem.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. Good question. Anybody? Any other questions? No? All righty. All right. Next question. We have an undergraduate student who only needs to take 3 hours to complete her degree. If she's given a professional judgment decision, is it okay if we give her a full award for the single semester if it won't exceed her tuition differential or her financial need? Yes or no, guys? No. Because she was given a professional judgment decision and she's enrolled at 3 1/4 time, she's only eligible to receive 25% of her maximum award amount. And the professional judgment decision is what enacts this. She's only eligible for 25%, so she's enrolled less than half time. She's enrolled a quarter time. All right. Any questions, anybody? Anything from online, Lynn? Rock and roll. Very good. Well, thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
The next agenda item is residency. If anyone, we're a little bit ahead of time. If anyone would like to take a short break, we can come back in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and get into residency. Why don't we do that right quick? Thank you. Okay, guys, let's go ahead and get started again. It may be more important than what I have to say, too.
Jane, you might want to pull that down a little so it's...
Okay. We now get to go and have fun and talk about residency. I have had the pleasure of working with residency now for about 20 years, and I keep thinking it's going to get easier, and it doesn't. Just that people keep getting more and more complicated. So it's unkind that people don't fall into these nice little simple patterns that were outlined in statute that make it easy to decide whether someone's a resident or not. And you have the dubious honor, because you're at private institutions, that you don't have a registrar's or admissions office whose full-time job or significant part of their job is to look at people and decide whether they're residents. This just gets to be something extra that's thrown into your hopper. So today I'm going to try to give you a sense of some of the basics in residency. You've seen some of this before, but I have an undergraduate degree in Russian, and Russian has this little saying, this is "Повторение мать учения," which is repetition is the mother of learning. And I don't totally agree with that philosophy, but it comes in handy on things like residency. There are 4 paths to residency. The first pass doesn't actually get you to residency, but it lets you continue with residency. And that's the path of someone who was classified as a resident at the last institution that they attended, and that was last fall or spring, so you haven't had more than 12 months pass since they were enrolled. There is a statute that indicates that someone who is continuously enrolled, and there's a specific definition for that, can be classified as a resident based on what happened at the last place where they were. The second path, and I've put these not in the order that they're in statute, but in the order in which I think they are simple to do. The second one is the 36-month approach, where the student can reside in Texas for 36 months leading up to high school graduation or receipt of a GED, and the year prior to enrolling in college, and by state statute, that person is a resident. Now, if they happen to not be a U.S. citizen or permanent resident, there's another step of an affidavit that they have to complete. But if you can document that 36-month period and the year leading up to enrollment, then you have a fairly easy way to say, yes, this is a resident or not. When you get back to paths or down to paths 3 and 4, you're actually getting to old statutes. This is the way you always used to have to determine residency. And it has to do with establishing a domicile in the state of Texas and maintaining it for 12 months. So you start having to look at things like employment, ownership of property, ownership of a business, and it's just a little bit more complicated. That doesn't mean that those people should be categorically excluded from TEG, but just recognize that there are more steps there in figuring out that they are eligible to do so.
Jane,
Okay.
I have an online question.
Yes, ma'am.
We've been told in the past that the Texas residency rules are such that the determination can be totally automated, such such as an electronic web form with underlying programming logic. In other words, the determination is not subject to professional judgment, regardless of how complex it can become. We just want to reconfirm that this is still true.
Good
Next question.
That's a good question. Figure out who that was and don't let you send another question in.
I know exactly who it was.
There is, in the Apply Texas form, do you use Apply Texas as an application for admissions? One of the features that they have put into that form is an estimate or a guesstimate of the student's eligibility or residency classification based on the pattern of responses that they have in the questions dealing with residency in that form. Now, I would say that that is probably an accurate reflection of the pattern for the student. It doesn't address questions about do you want documentation or what documentation you feel you should have. Documentation is something that our agency doesn't dictate. It's something it has to do with your comfort zone. If you are audited on some of these students, you could use the questions in the Apply Texas form as your proof that you gathered the information you needed to make the decision. Possibly that calculation on their part, I'm uncomfortable with that, but I can't say that it's wrong. When you're looking at them manually and not using the Apply Texas form, you're looking for those same kinds of patterns. You're looking to see that if they say that they've resided here for 3 years, they don't give an address in Illinois. Those kinds of things are what it's checking. So I think it's a good approach, but I wouldn't want to say go automatically on that and never ask a question. But I'm old school. There are some institutions that have such a large enrollment and so few people in the admissions office that they don't have many opportunities to get into the nitty-gritty. I guess we could have finished my presentation at that point. That could make it really short. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Jane. Case in point, that was for number 4 on the previous slide. I have a family that has just moved to the state of Texas, and the head of family is on a permanent visa, so-called green card. Would we need an affidavit from him in a year, or in a year could he qualify as a Texas resident?
Is he a permanent resident of the United States? Or does he have he is a permanent resident?
Yes, he's had a permanent residency card for probably about 8 or 10 years, as I understand.
Okay, once he has resided in the state of Texas, if he also established domicile while residing in the state of Texas and maintains it for 12 months, then he could qualify. To kind of clarify on that, let's say he moved to the state of Texas, period. Rented an apartment, didn't work. Being here for 12 months doesn't make you a resident.
Yes.
The fact that you're eligible to establish residency doesn't mean that happens. If you're in those last 2 categories, there are additional steps you've got to take. The most common one is employment. But yes, after he's been here a year, you could look to see whether during that year he established domicile and maintained it for 12 months, and on that basis grant residency for him or his child, dependent child, if they're claimed as a dependent.
Excellent.
Okay?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. Boy, you guys are coming in with full guns bloated. Let's go through a little more information here. The continuous enrollment path, you asked the question, were you enrolled last year or not? If they say yes, were you classified as a resident? If they say yes, they're a resident if they meet the continuous enrollment definition, and that is that they were enrolled the fall or spring of the prior year. Okay? Don't know why they went that way, but that's how it is in statute. So for continuous enrollment, they were enrolled the previous fall or spring and were classified as a resident. Okay, let's look at a case study. Elizabeth paid resident rate last year at a public institution here in Texas. She is now transferred to your institution. Is she a resident or non-resident? depends. What do you need to know? Okay, if we're looking at continuous enrollment, what's relevant? When was she enrolled? Was it fall or spring, or was it summer? If it was summer, that doesn't help her. Okay, the other thing you want to know is, especially if at a public institution, if all you know is they paid the resident rate, does that mean they were a resident? Okay, do you guys have waivers that let people pay lower tuition rates? Okay, public institutions do. By statute, they're authorized to make these waivers, and they can allow a non-resident to pay a resident tuition rate. So if you're looking at a transcript from a public institution, you want to know whether that was because of they're actually classified as a resident or they paid the resident tuition rate. Those are very different things. For instance, on state aid, the one who got to pay the resident rate could not qualify for TEG or Texas grant because that's not being a resident. They're a non-resident getting to pay the resident rate. Okay? Other thing we don't know, well, like I said, the two things are, were they classified as a resident, and we know that, but was it a continuing student by the definition that's in statute? And then you want to know, in this case, whether they were getting to pay the resident rate because of a waiver or not. Okay? I think probably the most common answer I'll give you about these questions is it depends. And we'll talk about the depending part most of this morning. Okay. Martha is a teacher and takes classes towards her master's degree each summer. Last summer she was classified as a resident. Notice I didn't say she paid resident rate. She was classified as a resident. Is she a resident this year? How do you define continuing enrollment? Fall or spring. Is she a resident this year? No. No. And what that means simply is that it doesn't mean she can't be classified as a resident, but you can't assume it. You have to have her do the core questions, and then you can make a decision. It may well be that she is a resident. In fact, it probably is true. But you can't go on automatic and say because you were a resident last year, you're a resident this year in this case. Okay? So it's a paperwork question in this case. All right? Make sense? Okay. Now we're getting into the second path, this 36-month approach. Notice it's not 3 years, it's 36 months. There's no rounding going on here. 35 and a half months is not 36 months. And when you're looking at a high school transcript, you're not looking to see if it was their sophomore, junior, and senior year. It's a 36-month period. What happened in that summer before? So you probably want to look at freshman, sophomore, junior, senior years. Statutes tend to want you to be very specific in this stuff. Okay, 36 years prior to getting a high school degree or the GED, and the year before enrollment in college. Now that could be your senior year in high school. That can overlap. If the answer to that question is yes, you did both of those, then the next question is, are you a U.S. citizen or permanent resident? If the answer is no, then you've got to get an affidavit signed. And what that affidavit does is it indicates, it has a student, it's a notarized statement. That's what an affidavit is. It's a notarized statement indicating they plan to apply for permanent resident status as soon as they're eligible to do so. Now, if this happens to be an undocumented student, then until federal law changes, they're not going to have an opportunity to apply for permanent resident status, probably. So it may be a long time before they can do what they're saying they're going to do. They may be out of your school by that time, but you are obligated to get their signature on that intention statement. Okay, if they are a U.S. citizen or permanent resident, don't worry about the affidavit. Go on, and they are a resident student. Okay, nice and straightforward. Okay. Barbara graduated high school in Texas in 1980, having lived here all her life. She now wants to go to college. Is she a resident or a non-resident? What do you need to know? Okay, well, she's lived in Texas all her life, so I think we can have that answer. But what else does she have to do?
Since they don't have a mic, could you repeat what they're saying for our online
okay,
listeners?
my apologies. The comment here was that you have to know that she was here the 36 months. And I suggested that saying that she was here all her life is trying to cover that. I may not have been as specific as I could have been. But what's the other time issue? And the year prior to enrolling. Okay, so she as of 1980, she met the 36-month requirement, but what has she done since then? Okay, if she's lived in Texas since then when she comes to your institution and shows this has been my permanent address for the last 45 years, then you can say, okay, based on your high school performance, graduation in the 36 months leading up to then, you would be classified as a resident. Let's say, on the other hand, she got married to somebody and lived in New York up until 30 days ago and comes back. What happens then? She has to wait and be here a year before she could qualify through the 36-month approach. Doesn't mean she loses that option, but it means that she can't do it now. She's got to get that year prior to enrollment going again. Okay? That makes sense? Okay. Kathy received a high school certificate of completion in spring 2012 and has continued to live in Texas. Is she now a resident or a non-resident? What is a certificate of completion? Okay, it's what you get when you passed all of your courses, but you didn't pass the tax test. They let you walk across the stage and with your friends, but you are not yet graduated because you haven't met that last requirement. And what would that imply as far as residency is concerned? They could not use that because they've not graduated from high school. Let's say this kid said, oh, the heck with it, I'm going to go get the GED, and does that. If she's lived here 36 months leading up to the GED, she's good to go as far as residency is concerned. If she works and works and works and finally passes that test and gets her high school diploma and has been here 36 months, she's good to go, as long as she's been here the year before as well. But this tax test or the end of course tests that they're putting into place at the public institutions, that could create some serious issues for these kids who are coming out of high school and expect to go right on in and find out they can't. Now, this is not saying in any way that this student couldn't qualify through path 3 or 4 as a resident. Now, the parent may be, if the parents have been living here and established residence as their dependent, she would qualify through them. All I'm saying is that the 36-month approach would be blocked through the fact that she hasn't graduated high school. Okay? Mark moved to Texas to live with his grandmother when he was a freshman in in high school. His parents live in Oklahoma and claim him as a dependent. If he graduates in Texas and goes to a Texas college, will he be a resident of Texas or Oklahoma? Pardon? What you think? Okay.
So you're saying that he went to Texas high school for 36 months, and then he met the. Sorry, thanks, Ken. You're saying basically that he went to Texas high school for 36 months, and then I'm assuming then he met the 12-month prior to the enrollment. So it seems like to me then he would be a Texas resident based on meeting that criteria on his own.
That is correct. The fact that his parents are out of state and are claiming him does not keep him from being eligible through the 36-month approach. Let's say there are a lot of kids out there. How many of you run into kids who are living with their grandparents, with their aunts and uncles, not with the parents, and the parents are out of state? If this were not true, they would be residents of the state where their parents are, even though they may never have been there. Now, if they haven't had the 36-month approach, if he moved here when he was a senior, he wouldn't have that option. He would be an Oklahoma resident. But because he meets the 36-month approach, that trumps the other, or it's an alternate path that he can legitimately use to claim residency on his own. That makes sense? Okay? All right. Any questions about the 36-month approach? Yes, sir. Ken, sorry. Thank you, Raphael.
I've run into a lot of students who have studied abroad during high school, so that they've been in Europe or somewhere else, and I guess their address or their place that they domicile out of is still here in Texas, but they'll all often on the form check no, that they haven't been in Texas for 36 months. Mm-hmm. So I guess I kind of just always overlook that, or ask them to recomplete
and
the form.
I would say that those people cannot qualify for residency through the 36-month. However, they would not, because they have not been in Texas for the 36-month leading up to high school graduation. However, they may well be residents through their parents, through the domicile, which is what we'll talk about next. But they could not use a 36-month approach if they had been studying abroad.
Okay.
Okay, good question. All right. Okay, these are the kinds of questions you get involved in when you're talking about the Path 3 and Path 4. Whose domicile is relevant, sorry. How does one establish domicile? Who is eligible to domicile? And then there's some definitions that have to do with this path to residency. Definition of dependent, parent, domicile, gainful employment, and temporary absence. Now, in your handouts, there should be a set of residency supplemental materials. If you do not have those, I've got some copies here. Let me know, and we'll pass them out. And I'm not going to go through them during the presentation. If you're online, those materials, those supplemental materials, are available online, and you can download those. But mainly what it is a set of definitions from the residency rules that are for these terms, plus a little other part of the rules on residency that deal with gainful employment and temporary absence. If you don't have those materials, let us know. I'll put a stack of them out here, and you can get them today. But when you get home, you can also download them from our website, and those online can do it now. Okay, let me back up a little bit. Whose domicile is relevant, boy, I have trouble with that name, that word, has to do with whose information is just like with the FAFSA, whether you're dependent or not impacts whose information you've got to look at. If you're a dependent or independent, the same is true about domicile and establishing residency based on it. If you are a dependent, then it's your parents' domicile that's relevant. If you are independent, then it is your own information. So very, very similar to FAFSA. Only FAFSA has things like a 24-year cutoff, automatic kind of definition of who's dependent and not. And that's not the same rules in terms of residency. So you do want to look at these materials and make sure you're not applying the FAFSA definitions, but rather the residency definitions for these terms. How does one establish domicile? There are three primary approaches. One is used the most by students in particular, but for a lot of parents, and that's being gainfully employed for at least a 12-month period in the state. Now, in your handouts, in these supplemental materials, there is a definition of gainful employment. And that has to do with earning enough money to pay half of your tuition and fees and living expenses in a year, or being employed at least 20 hours a week for a year. Okay? Probably a lot of people are going to have trouble, especially at a private institution, meeting the tuition and fee and cost earnings for a year, but they should be able to go with the 20 hours a week. Who is eligible to domicile? U.S. citizens, U.S. permanent residents. And then there is a variety of visa holders. In other words, they're immigrants who are here with papers that allow them to stay here long enough to establish domicile. Now, if you don't know who's on that list or which visas are on that list, you can go to the College for All Texans website, which is www.collegeforalltexans.com. And when you get on the main screen, there's a search engine up here on the right. Just type in visa, And it will take you to a document that you can open up, and it gives a list of the visas. And on the right of the visa type, it says yes or no. If it's yes, it indicates we know this is something that you could hold and qualify to establish domicile. On the other type, it's no. It doesn't matter how long they're living here, they will not be able to establish domicile. They would continue to be non-residents. Okay? So that's where you find the list. And then the definitions. Let's go on and look at the spreadsheet. First question is, are you dependent or independent? Again, just like FAFSA, you got to know whose information is relevant. In this pattern, they're a dependent student, so they're looking at the parents' information. Have they domiciled in Texas? If no, they're non-resident. If the answer is yes, then they have to maintain that domicile 12 months, in which case, if they have done so, the parent is a resident and the dependent children are residents. Okay? The next pattern is almost identical, except the names have been changed. We're talking now about the student, or if they're married, the student's spouse. And then, again, the question is, have they established domicile? Have they maintained it 12 months? And that's the path to residency. Any questions on these? Okay. All right, John's family moved to Texas when he was in 11th grade. So what does that tell you right off? Can't do the 36-month, right. His parents moved to New York last year when he was a senior, and he stayed behind and graduated with his class. Is he a resident or non-resident? He's a non-resident because his parents, he can't establish his own claim because he hasn't been here the 36 months. So by default, they have to look at who established domicile. He's a dependent, so it's the parents, and the parents moved to New York. Now, we could get really fancy and say, hey, that could be a temporary assignment for the dad to New York. If they've lived in Texas long enough to establish domicile and then have a temporary assignment out of state, then they would be able to come back and maintain that residence in Texas. But that's, another degree of complexity in residency. But that can happen. You do have temporary absences which do not disrupt your claim to residency. Let's say you have a student who's been a resident of Texas all his life, and he goes to college in Wisconsin and then comes back to go to graduate school. Would he be a resident or non-resident? Being out of state to go to college is a temporary reason. That's why when you have students coming here from Illinois, they don't get to be classified as residents because we think they're here for a temporary reason and then they're going to go back where they came from. If the Texas student goes out of state to study and then comes back here at the end of his studies, if he hangs around up there for a while and works for a while after he gets out of school, he shoots himself in the foot for this. But if he comes right back, then he's showing that that was a temporary period up there and he's coming back here and he hasn't lost that claim to residency. So college is one of those kinds of temporary absences that occur. Okay? Patrick, a Louisiana resident, has been adopted by Texas residents. He moved to Texas to live with them in July 2012. When will he be eligible to pay the resident rate? First, you don't know from this whether the parents are residents or not, but let's assume that the parents have established residency. How does the dependent qualify for residency? Through the parents' residency. So as soon as he's adopted by them, he is a resident of Texas through them. Okay? Let's say this was a stepchild, not an adopted child. Could that work that way? And the answer is no. A stepchild does not have that legal link to the parent that an adopted child would. If a stepchild is then adopted, then they are a dependent for residency type purposes. That makes sense? Oh, you guys are really quiet. George is independent. He moved to Texas 3 years ago. He worked for IBM in Austin ever since and enrolled in a public institution 1 year ago. Is he a resident or non-resident? Could he have established domicile? Yes. And how? Through the work. Right. Okay. If he is eligible to domicile, if he isn't holding one of these visas that just lets him temporarily work for IBM here in Texas, then if he's a U.S. citizen or permanent resident, if he holds a visa that allows him to domicile, then what he has done here would allow him to establish a claim to residency, assuming he wasn't working 5 hours a week. Just temporarily getting, a little internship kind of thing. If he has actually worked full-time or half-time at least for a 12-month period, he would be a resident of Texas. Henry is independent. He moved to Texas 18 months ago to work for Dell. He was laid off after 10 months, and it took him 3 months to find a new job. He's still working now at the new job. He wants to attend college. Is he a resident or non-resident? This is where they fall in between the cracks. And it actually is a place where institutions can exercise some professional judgment. In my opinion, if he provided you proof that for that 3 months he was desperately looking for work, then I would say you could allow him to go ahead and be classified as a resident. If, on the other hand, he was sitting back enjoying his severance pay or whatever, then maybe not. But in the current economic times, this kind of situation probably is not that rare. And to the extent you feel comfortable with it and feel like you could justify it to an auditor, I think that's up to you. Documentation, as always, is going to be a key. Richard worked in Texas back in the 2000s. Early 2000, but has not worked for the past several years, though he has continued to live in Texas. He doesn't own a home or business in Texas. Is he a resident or a non-resident? Did he establish domicile? If he worked, depending on how much he worked during those years, if he had a year period when he was working at least 20 hours a week, he established a claim to residency. And if he's done nothing to disrupt it, if he didn't go live with his daughter in Illinois for a year and a half, then in all likelihood he is still a resident. You don't have to have been employed the last 12 months in order for that to work. Okay. I know I'm running out of time. But when you approach residency, you can do this. I would keep it simple. At the same time, it worries me that schools might be discounting students who are not eligible for the 36-month approach because that's so easy to document. There are a lot of people who are eligible who can't qualify in the 36-month approach, but can through the domicile. If you want to look at the domicile folks, you could start with what the Apply Texas form indicates as what it looks like from the pattern there. And then, in my opinion, all you need to do is ask for a piece of documentation or two. If it's the 36-month, ask for the high school transcript. If it's employment, maybe ask for a letter about employment. Okay?
You still have about 20 minutes.
Oh, good. Okay. Y'all have any questions about residency? When you do your classifications, obviously you need to capture them into your system, because when you submit your end-of-year report, or excuse me, at least when you do your FADS report, there are questions dealing with whether you are a resident or not. This morning I interrupted Raphael a bit to talk about undocumented students. Undocumented students can meet the 36-month approach to residency. If you look at that statute, there's nothing in it that talks about their visa classification, their immigration status, or anything like that. The statute says if you're here 36 months leading up to high school graduation or receipt of a GED in the year prior to enrolling in college, then you're a resident. If you just happen to not be a U.S. citizen or permanent resident, which would be the case for the undocumented student, then you have to do the affidavit. But then they are bona fide Texas residents by state law. Okay? When we get into the next session of the legislature, which is next spring, It's very likely that residency is going to be one of the issues that gets discussed a lot. One of my fears, and I don't have a position one way or the other about the undocumented students, but one of my concerns is if they choose to say, no, we want only Texas residents to qualify for TEG or to qualify as residents of Texas, that I fear that they might go in and just delete the 36-month approach to residency because that takes care of it. But if they did that, it would make it hard for a lot of students who are U.S. citizens, permanent residents, but happen to be living with aunts and uncles or grandparents and that kind of thing. So I'm hoping, and if you end up in a discussion about this with the legislator, again, no matter which way you go with it, if you have a chance to talk to them, say, if this is the way it goes, if the decision is to limit residency or aid eligibility based on the 36-month or two undocumented students, let's not take a broad brush approach to doing that. Let's do it and say you could add something to TEG that said this program is not open to persons not legally in the country. I mean, it can be as simple as that without undoing the ease of residency for kids who are not in your typical family kind of situation. So I would hope if you have an opportunity to talk about that, you would do so. Any questions about residency?
I have an online question.
Yes, ma'am.
Do renewal TEG students who have been continuously enrolled have to answer the core residency questions every new academic year?
If the student has been classified as a resident by your institution based on the core questions, then continues to be enrolled each year, at least fall or spring, then no, they would not have to do the core questions again. The same is true with the affidavit. The affidavit is a one-time document per institution. If you get an affidavit when they come in the first time, you don't have to require them to do it every year. In fact, I think only once is necessary. Now, if you had a transfer student and that affidavit is at the other institution, if I were in your boots, I would probably ask to get an affirmation for my records in case you keep better your records than the other school. But that is not that you question their eligibility, but you need to have it in your documentation. Yes, sir.
What about parents with seasonal addresses where they do own a home in Texas but don't primarily live there? Like the parents work out of state, but they own property.
Right. The ownership of property in Texas does not in and of itself make you a resident. I mean, you could own a very nice home in Travis County for years, but if you're living in Illinois or New York or wherever, if that's your primary place of residence, then you're not a resident of Texas. Where you get into the kind of documentation you would look into would be where do they file their income tax? Where do they do their banking? Do they have a will on file at a county court? You know, the people who are out of state temporarily but maintain a claim to residency back home typically are doing these things to show that I still registered to vote there. My car registration is so easy to do. It's hard to base much of anything on that. Even driver's license is pretty iffy because you typically get a driver's license in the state you're living in. But where they pay their income tax, where they do their banking, where their will is filed, those kinds of things are showing this tie back to the state. But simply owning a house hill does not by itself do that.
And what about owning a business?
Same thing.
Same thing.
If they're not here working with that business, it's just an investment, and we hope it does well. But we don't see that really as a basis for residency. The idea of residency is to look at someone who is residing in the state primarily and is out of the state only for temporary reasons. I'm kind of surprised none of you ask about missionaries, because that's one kind of question that comes up a lot with the private schools. You can have someone who is born and bred in Texas but has been a missionary in Japan for 10 years. And that is a really hard sell to say that that's a resident of Texas. And, you know, you pull that back to a couple of years, you maybe say that's a temporary reason for being gone. That's one of the really most difficult ones to sort out is whether a missionary who comes back to Texas every 5 or 6 years for a summer should be considered a resident of Texas, and I don't have a ready answer to that. I think that's something that's a case-by-case kind of determination. My father was a business officer for a construction company, and I went to 8 elementary schools and 5 high schools. And our tie to Texas was that we own property here. We came back here every chance we get. And it's just that our company kept sending us hither and yon. So that's getting to be a very common kind of situation for families, and it makes it hard. And so these kids who can go the 36-month approach, even if their parents are moving around, they can establish some claim to residency here in Texas in spite of that.
And where would you draw the line? I mean, if a student does study abroad during high school, is it, if they're gone for the whole year, would you draw the line at maybe they were just gone for a semester, a month? Where do you make that determination?
It's a valid question, but I don't think I have a ready answer. If you take the statutory language literally, that person, as soon as they leave the state, is a non-resident. Or at least, no, they're not a non-resident. They lose the 36-month approach. And I think that's the main thing to remember, is if that person goes out of state because they have study abroad as a high school student, what's going on with the parents? If the parents are continuing here, then what the kid's doing is irrelevant. And that protects the student.
Right. It's just one more step to go through as far as determining residency and having to get documentation.
Right. But I don't think it would be legitimate to use the 36-month in the case that the student has not been in Texas attending high school for 36 months, or for the 36 months leading up to high school graduation. Any other questions? Thank you very much. And if you don't have the handouts that are the supplements, I'm going to put them right here, and you can pick one up during the break. Do we have a break now, or do we go on?
There's a 15-minute break scheduled. We were supposed to break at 10:45. We're running about 15 minutes early.
Okay. Why don't we come back in 15 minutes, if you will, and then we'll start with the second part of TEG. Thank you.
So we can get ready for lunch. Anybody have any questions or any comments or anything wanted to share before we start? No. Fine, be that way. I don't care. All righty. Oop, did it again. All right. In this presentation for TEG, I'm going to talk about the reporting aspects of the program and how we determine allocations, the ones that you'll receive each year. Here we go. First off, I'm going to talk about the reports that we have to do for the program. Of course, I'll be discussing the needs survey, which is currently out and about right now. It's due November 7th. Talk about the progress report, of course, the highly anticipated year-end report, and the audit report. Now, the needs survey, we send out the instructions and the forms. We send that out in early September. This year, as always, it's due November 7th. And what it is that we collect student-by-student information from each of the private schools and take the aggregate information and the totals and whatnot and use that information from each school to determine your initial allocations that are going to be issued to you for the upcoming fiscal year. And I have a question. Does adding a student to this listing mean that your school is required to give the student a TEG award next year? Correct. All you're doing is that you're making sure with the needs survey, you're looking at it as if we were given an unlimited number of dollars. You're supposed to identify everybody at your school that qualifies to receive the award, so that by giving us everybody and giving us accurate numbers, you increase your chances, your potential, your percentage of the appropriation. So no, just because you put the student on the listing does not mean you have to give them an award. You still have the authority to decide to whom to offer a TEG award. However, to be included in the survey, the student has to meet all the appropriate award eligibility requirements, IY or RY. Now, note, one thing you do have to remember is that if you are looking at a current renewal award recipient, if the student did not meet the school SAP requirements, you are required to exclude listing that student on the needs survey. You have to remember that just because if they're not meeting renewal SAP requirements, they have to stay off the survey. Unless you give them hardship provision to allow them to continue receiving TEG. Now here's just a snapshot, an example of what the TEG needs survey form looks like. You can see here where we're asking you to identify their names, classification, cost of attendance, EFC. The column F is an automatically determined column, gross need. And then, of course, you enter Pell Grant, any categorical aid. Adjusted gross need is also automatically calculated for you. And then the final two columns for the TEG need and any exceptional need monies the student may qualify for. Again, only undergraduate students with exceptional need. Yes, sir. Oh, let me get that.
Thank you. Raphael, what types of aid are included in categorical aid?
Anything that the student brings with them, not including VA benefits, not including the military benefits. It's usually an outside type of scholarship, a private scholarship, some other type of funding that you yourself, that the institution is not capable of awarding to another student.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? All righty. Now, something we did new this year. What we're doing in the past is we'd take in your needs survey and we'd run it through a filter to see if there were any sort of issues, like say exceptional need money is being given to a graduate student, or your survey form showing that a student had a potential adjusted gross need of $5,000, but you're only giving them $2,500. You weren't reporting them as giving the full amount, $3,518. We would do that manually. What we did this year is we actually included in the work survey form, the booklet, a document that does that for you automatically. That way you enter all your data, you go to the next worksheet, and there we'll list anything for you that may have been erroneously entered. It'll identify it for you. It'll immediately identify it for you. It'll let you know which records you need to look at, and it helps you to confirm that these are the numbers that you want us to use to determine your allocation for the upcoming year. And right here is an example of that worksheet. It's the second tab on the needs survey workbook. You can take a look at here where we see some of the issues that were detected and such. We'll go into the detail here in a second. So let's take a look at these two records here, records number 1 and 2. The problem with record number 1 is you can see that the student has an adjusted gross need of $4,711. However, when you add what was reported for the TEG need and exceptional need, it's only $4,518. That's a difference of $193. So what you would do there is you would actually want to you get the system report that there's an issue showing that their TEG need plus exceptional need is less than their undergraduate need, than the adjusted gross need. So what you'd want to do is change that 1,000 to 1,193. That way the total of those two columns matches their adjusted gross need, be 4,711. It increases the amount that you would be reporting. On the second student, you can take a look here. Student is classified as a graduate student. Problem is, you're reported as being eligible to receive exceptional TEG need, and that's not possible. To resolve this issue, you'd have to actually change the 1759 to 0. Again, graduate students can't receive exceptional need. Question. Now, the information that I entered into the survey for a student is accurate, but the system is still having an issue with it. How do you resolve it? Right here. Let me know, and we'll take a look at that, and we'll figure out what's going on. I can always just override the issue, the edit, and I'll do a little email conversation with you, let you know, hey, I see what the problem is. Thank you for pointing it out to me, and I'll send something back to you saying I'm still going to accept your numbers as you reported them. They'll be your official numbers. We'll work something out. We'll talk about it and discuss it. Not a problem. Any questions? Okay. Now a little bit about the progress report. It is usually distributed in late January and with a due date of February 20th. And now the purpose for the progress report is, again, just to make sure we want to ensure that institutions are utilizing the program monies. Again, we get appropriated a certain amount of monies. We want to make sure the monies are spent. We don't want anything left over. We want to make sure things are being spent properly. On that deadline, what it is students, schools that have not dispersed their entire allocation, they're not encumbered it. We actually we collect that information, collect that money, and then for those schools that have dispersed their entire initial allocation and have requested additional monies, we go through the reallocation process to give those schools additional monies to cover what they've requested. And I don't like you, so we're going to keep going.
That's right. This is going to be a comment. It won't even be a question for you.
Okay, then please.
Really kind of going back to the TEG need survey. It'd be helpful that when you get all the completed surveys in, that you could go back to the schools and say, this is your percentage of the TEG need. So that way we can start our planning, because with the legislative year, we may not know until June what the budget's going to look like.
Right.
But at least internally, we can make sure if we're on a consistent basis. So as that total allocation fluctuates, we can then adjust our plans as well, too, knowing that we're going to get that percentage.
Okay. That's something we could do, Jay? We could give them their need share percentage for the upcoming year?
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Okay. We can definitely do that then. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. I'll make note of that.
I guess what I would mention, though, is the exceptional need can cause some variation in what you get when you apply the TEG need. Does the TEG need include the exceptional need part? It does, doesn't it?
No, it does not. They have two separate columns. I've got a column for just the TEG. The TEG need award, max 3518, and then the separate column for if the student qualifies for any exceptional need money. So they're two separate columns.
Yeah, but what's going to happen, our TEG allocation is based on our TEG need, which includes exceptional need as regular need as well, too.
That is correct.
So it's all in there.
Okay, as long as it's all in there, then yes, you could use it that way. And
Okay.
I see no reason why we wouldn't share that information.
Okay, we'll do that then. I'll give you the percentage of what you're expected to get early before we know what the appropriation amount is. Okay? And here's what the last progress report from FY12 looks like. You can see just enter the information, what was your original allocation, how much did you return, if any, to the agency, work study funds, And at the bottom is where the schools that have dispersed and encumbered their entire initial allocation is where the school would tell me how much more money they need for how many more students. And, of course, we can try to accommodate them as we can with whatever monies are returned. You're not always going to get what you ask for, but it doesn't hurt to ask. Now, the year-end report. Okay, we usually distribute out that document in early May with a due date of June 15th. What we do with this report is that we do verify that institutions are adhering to the program award requirements. We use that information to reconcile your information with our program ledger records to make sure everybody balances out as need be. And one of the things that also does is that identifies students whose Social Security numbers are not on file with our agency. There's no error with that. You don't have to resolve that issue to complete and certify your TEG in your report. But what we do is we're kind of letting you know ahead of time for the FADS report, hey, this may come up later, something to take a look at now to address it. And so you already have advanced warning of an issue to address on your FADS report when that's due later in the year in December, kind of like what's going on right now. Okay. Now, the report is submitted in a fixed length format, which means that each data record in each field must be of a specified length, even if you don't completely fill up the form. Like the address field asks for 30 characters max. You would just put in however many, 15, 18, whatever the address is. You don't fill it up entirely, but you still have to make sure that you designate for that field 30 spaces. Otherwise, it's going to be read entirely incorrectly, which is something else that happens primarily with numbers. All the fields in the NDE report are supposed to be left justified. Now, again, that causes problems with some of the figures, and I had a lot of times issues with a school entering. Ooh, spooky. Where's that? Okay. What they're doing is that wasn't supposed to be on there. Anyway, okay. What's going on here is in this situation, a school entered for the award amount, they gave a student $3,518. That's just really freaking me out. That's part of my webinar presentation. I have no idea that was going to show. Okay, anyway, I thought I just deleted the audio. Well, yay me. Okay, so in this situation, the school gave the student $3,518. Award amount is supposed to be 6 digits in length. But what the school entered was just 3518. Because the amount is left justified, the system is reading blank blank 358. We also had some schools that were reporting $3,518 as 003518. Unfortunately, because our system is looking at the numbers as being left justified, both of those entries were coming up as being a $35.18 award. So it was throwing off all the numbers, messing everything up. The proper way to do it, to submit the award amount, was with the trailing zeros at the end, because the first four numbers are for the dollars, the last two numbers are for the cents. You just didn't see the point. So for this amount, $33,518 needed to have been reported as 351800, $3,518. Same problem happened with hours, be they students reporting fall hours, spring hours, summer hours, whatever it may be. The length of that entry had to be 3 digits. Well, schools were entering 12, 18, 15, no space, or a 0 at the beginning, just 15 and nothing else, or just a 0 at the beginning of it. Well, the system interpreted that as 1.5 hours, 1.8 hours, 1.2 hours, which again threw everything off and had to be corrected. Proper entry for hours completed would have to be 15.0 without the point being in there. So 150. Again, last number is a decimal point on those columns, on those fields. Okay, question. An RY recipient did not meet program SAP requirements this year. We plan to issue the student a professional judgment decision to give him an award next year. Can we go ahead and enter yes in the end of year report field asking if he met SAP this year? Anybody? No. If the data record shows that the renewal award student did not meet the program SAP requirements, you must enter in this field. I had a few schools that were putting yes, and I was contacting them going, well, what's going on? Is your information correct? Is it incorrect? Oh, no, we're going to give them a professional judgment decision. It's like, well, okay, that's fine. But what you're going to have to do on the end of your report is show that he is not meeting SAP. Next year's report, where the field asks, did you issue professional judgment? That's where the school is going to enter yes. And then that will substantiate the student receiving an award in FY13. But a lot of schools were trying to get around it. It's like, no, it has to specify yes or no. Because who's to say that the student says he's telling you, I'm going to enroll again next year at your school, and goes to a different school. All of a sudden the school takes a look at the information and contacts me, oh, they met SAP, okay, yay, when in fact they didn't. So at the end of the year, the meeting SAP, that question has to be answered based on the information contained in the student record. Any questions? All right. Now the audit report. Woo. All right. This report, the deadline instructions, all that kind of stuff is distributed in early March, with the report being due of April 15th of the following year. Now this is the one, this audit confirms that awards are going only to eligible students and that institutions have internal controls to ensure adherence to the program laws and regulations. It's whereas the end of year report determines and confirms that you're giving awards properly, the audit report confirms that you're administering the program properly, that everything's in place to make sure you're doing what needs to be done to work in this program. Hello. Third time's a charm. All right, question. Our school has internal auditors. Can they perform the audit? Anybody? I'm sorry? I'm sorry? No. I got you. You are correct. The answer is yes. But if your institution does have an audit office, the audit office has to be independent of the financial aid and dispersing offices. If it is independent, then yes, your internal auditing office may perform the audit. Otherwise, it's best to go have your audit conducted by an external auditor. So, yeah, again, your audit office has to be independent of the financial aid and dispersing offices to be able to properly conduct the audit. Now, a couple of things to note on the FY12 audit report. Tuition differential calculations. As I described in the prior presentation, you now are required to base your tuition differential calculations on the SACS levels that we discussed. So that has been added to the report, showing that that's a requirement, that you had to base tuition differential calculations based on your SACS level. Another thing that changed was based with the students enrolling in the fall 2011 or 2012 semester, I can't remember, I think it was 2011, you had to start making residency decisions based off the residency core questions. You had to use those as your basis for determining residency. And that was with it was rules that were adopted in February of 2011 and applied to enrollees that year.
I have a question.
Yes.
I spoke first. Okay. I got it up first. And I have a mic, so that lets me go first. There was a question raised about for the needs survey where they're determining students are eligible, can they base it on a high school transcript as opposed to having the full core questions completed? What is the answer to that question? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. Our response was that for the needs survey, if institutions had the high school transcript but not yet the full core, they could go ahead and use that for the needs survey, but when they were doing the awarding, they would have to have the core questions in hand, either through the core question form itself or the Apply Texas application. Okay? So you can take it a little bit easy when you're doing your needs survey, but the actual awarding needs to be done based on the core questions, either as they are as a freestanding document or as they are included in the Apply Texas form.
Sir.
I believe the approval was February 2012. It was this year on those residency core questions, not 2011. So it actually occurred this spring.
Okay. I apologize on that one.
No.
Yeah. It was okay. Very good. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Now, there was some other information changed in the audit guide concerning prorating awards. Some appendices were added about the tuition differential information and prorating award amounts. All of that information that was changed was edited in the audit guide is highlighted in yellow. I made sure I highlighted it to point out to everybody, to the auditors and to the schools, hey, this is new stuff. This is a little bit changed to make sure that these change from the FY11 audit report, audit guide, FY12. Here are the main changes. I highlighted them to make sure you could see what was going on. And if you do have any questions about anything like that, please send me an email, and I will respond to it as quickly as I can. Okay? Question? Okay, please.
Do you offer any kind of training for the auditors as far as the audit requirements?
Okay, question was, do we offer any sort of training to the auditors as they perform the audit? And the answer is no. I'm afraid we don't at this point in time.
Other than the audit guide.
Other than the audit guide, I'm afraid we don't have seminars on how to do it properly.
The reason why we work with our auditors, and they're external, and they're always asking for avenues where, every year you get new auditors. They kind of work through the process. Mm-hmm. And so you have to retrain them. And they keep asking if there's opportunities both with the Title IV as well as with the state programs to give an education process for the auditors. So something maybe just to think about in the future, that there may be a one afternoon or one day workshop you might want to conduct for the audit firms.
Maybe sometime where we actually go into definitions of the terminology utilized on the audit guide, because somebody who's not familiar with the TEG program, what is financial need, and they may have their idea of what it is, but...
Well, it is scary when the auditor comes in and says, what does TEG stand for? So you kind of know you're on a learning curve that you got to work with. So.
Okay. That's actually a pretty good point. Let's think about that.
Another option might be to create a training tool that we have online as opposed to having a workshop, so they could do it at their time and convenience. Good idea.
Point. Yeah. Thank you, David. Appreciate it. We'll put that down also.
I have an online question.
Yes.
You mentioned being contacted by schools for information on students' prior year SAP results. Mm-hmm. If we cannot find this information after a reasonable amount of time from students or other schools, do you have a procedure for contacting the coordinating board to get this information?
Nothing specifically in place. We're still trying to implement an online TEG eligibility website where you go in and enter a social and find out what was reported for the student, when it was last reported, what was reported. We're still working on that. At this point in time, other than sending me an email and asking me to research it for you, I'm afraid that's the only procedure. We don't have anything in place, proper procedures of documentation, documented procedures in place at this time. We are trying to work on something where you can go online and verify it yourself based on what was reported to us, but I'm afraid we don't have anything like that at this point in time. Anything else? All right. All right. Question. An institution is returning some of its initial allocation as financial aid staff submit the progress report. The school is asking for additional award monies on the report form. Is the school eligible to receive reallocated award monies? I'm afraid not. Only institutions that disperse their entire initial allocations are eligible to receive reallocated monies. We will focus on them primarily at first. Of course, if we have a great year and it turns out that we have a lot more monies refunded to us than what's being asked for reallocation, we'll send out notification of such. But yeah, don't hold your breath. All right. Next question. A spring 2012 renewal award recipient transferred to our institution that semester. We know we can only report work completed at our school on our year-end report, but we have his transcript from the other school for the fall 2011 semester. This information proves he can receive a renewal award next year. On our report, can we go ahead and indicate that, yes, he has met renewal award SAP requirements? And the answer is no, I'm afraid not. The answer to the question you report for the student on your Indy report has to be supported by the information contained in the student record. Now, in this particular situation, what would happen is that it would be the student would have information from both schools, both of them showing no, he didn't meet SAP. What you could always do is confirm. You can always get the information yourselves. You always have the final word, so to speak, in terms of we have information that says otherwise. You would just let me know or document it appropriately, and I could always edit records or just make note of it and just take care of it for you in the future when the next year end of your report comes up. But on each report, you have to make sure that you answer the question based on the information for your school in that student record. One more question. Now, we know that audit reports are supposed to be based on a sample of at least 50 TEG award recipients or 5% of the recipient pool, whichever is greater. But this school has fewer than 50 recipients. Is it true that they can only use a sample size of only 5 recipients? Yes or no? Yes. As long as the auditor performing the report has already determined that compliance controls are in effect and in place and effectively working, and that control risk is low. As long as the auditor predetermines that, then yes, the auditor only has to look at 5 student records of your TEG recipient pool to perform the audit. All right, here comes the fun one. We'll talk about allocations now. Yes. Oh, okay. Talk about the appropriation, we'll revisit the needs survey, and then I'll talk about how we go about calculating your allocation amounts and why it is that we compare these amounts to prior years. Now, of course, with the appropriation, every biennium the Texas legislature determines the amount that's going to be dispersed and given to the TEG program for the following 2 fiscal years. Again, since next year is a legislative session year, I'm afraid we won't know what the appropriation amounts are going to be for fiscal years 14 and 15 until it's done. The session is done, which will hopefully be around June sometime, at the earliest.
Raphael?
Yes.
May I step on a soapbox?
Sure.
Because of that, if we are able to send allocations or allocation information prior to the signing of the Appropriations Act, everyone needs to recognize that that is an estimate at best, and that the actual appropriation can change between when we make that estimate and later on. So your packaging needs to be done with that in mind, that this could change, and if you package based on the estimated amount of money, then you do so at your risk. We want to give you information as soon as we can, but if we give it to you before the signing of the Appropriations Act, you've got to recognize that that is a best guess at that point in time. Okay? Thanks.
All right. Now, again, we talked about the needs survey. Again, the information that we collect from the schools, the aggregate information is used to determine each school's initial allocation amount for the upcoming year. I'm sorry? I was about a question. No? Okay, sorry about that. And again, so what we do is, and again, the survey worksheet provided a worksheet that actually analyzes your information and confirms the numbers for you that you're submitting to be used to determine the allocation. Now here's an example of what the form looks like. What I do is that when you send the needs survey to me, I confirm that all the edits are taken care of, that all the issues are resolved. One of the worksheets has all the aggregate information, the totals from each of your columns. I copy that. Well, of course, each column has each data survey element contained in its own column. I copy your record and I paste it appropriately in this master worksheet. All right. So then, once I do all that, once all the schools are in, I have all the totals. I start to determine how we're going to figure out your allocation amounts. So what I do is there are 3 new data element entries that we create for each school. First one is something we call the adjusted TEG need. Now what this entails is we take half of the exceptional need total reported by the school and add it to the total TEG need reported for the school. Do that for everybody. And then at the very bottom, we of course sum that up. What everybody, this amount of money that could be given to students if we had it, this is how much we would need to give every student eligible TEG. So that number is calculated, the total number is calculated. The next data element that's created is the need share. Again, what this is we divide each adjusted TEG need amount for the school, we divide that by the grand total to generate your allocation percentage, the percentage of the appropriation you're going to get for that upcoming fiscal year. Which, of course, how you make that multiplication, you do that calculation, you multiply the need share percentage against the fiscal year appropriation, and that's going to be your initial allocation amount. That's what we report to you. So it's a lot of work, but when we explain it, it's fairly simple. We don't do anything complex. It's not rocket science. Rocket, R-O-K-E-T, science. Anyway, so it's fairly simple. It's nothing, no magic on that one. Now, what I do then is after I've got all the numbers, I do actually compare the initial allocation amounts for the upcoming year. I compare them to the current years to find out, see if there's any major discrepancies. And if so, this is what happens. If a significant discrepancy does exist, I take a look at each of the data survey elements totals from last year, last fall, and the fall 2012 and fall 2011, and I'll compare them, see what's going on. Okay. Then what will happen is then I'll contact your institution to let you know, hey, this is what I found. I'll ask you, hey, make sure, okay, even though everything's been edit checked and stuff like that, are you sure you gave me all your students? Especially if it turns out you've reported 400 fewer students than last year. Is that correct? Did you include everybody? I'm going to confirm verbally on the phone through email. Make sure that what you gave me this year, is that correct? Okay? And again, then I'm going to make sure, again, the accuracy is usually actually done pretty well through the worksheet, but I'm going to again make sure, are you sure that, your tuition differential, use the right SACS level classification? I'm going to just make sure everything is correct. Oftentimes, then what will happen is if everything is correct, then I'll have to take a look at other reasons. For instance, some schools may have lost 300, 400,000. What's going on? I'll take a look at it and go, well, you said you reported an extra 100 students, but all these students are graduate students, so they don't qualify for exceptional needs. So technically, you're not asking for as much money as other schools who now have more undergraduates with exceptional need requirements. So that means your need percentage dropped, which of course reduces the amount of money you're getting from the appropriation. We'll discuss it. I mean, if there's something significant, we'll talk about it and make sure that explain to you what happened, what's going to happen, why it happened. I'm not going to leave you dangling in the wind. No. Anyway, but yeah, we're going to work out and make sure that everything is correct for you. I don't want anybody feeling left out or cheated. I don't play that game. I don't work that way. Okay. Any questions or anything about anything? Is it fairly understandable? I mean, and there's a lot of information, but does it seem okay? Okay. All right. All right then. Any questions? Yes.
Raphael, I was talking to the person who's working on our needs survey right now from our institutional research office, and one of the questions she wanted me to ask you was about the response files that she's getting as she's submitting and getting error reports and the format that they're in. Or maybe it's for FATMs, maybe that's what it is. But even with the different reporting options for TEG as well, is just to encourage the THECB to give response files in a format that's user-friendly, so that she can put them in an Excel document and that they can be used by and sent to other departments on campus for verification.
Are you talking about like for the end of year report when schools are getting the PDF?
Yeah.
We've had other schools ask about or an Excel format or something to listen at that in a more user-friendly format.
So that they can sort it and send it to other departments. So that was just a recommendation that she asked me to pass on.
That's the first recommendation of that nature, because I know from, for instance, like with Top 10, I believe it was Top 10, there was an issue where we didn't communicate well with our IT department, and so a report would go out. It would not let, like say UT Austin submitted, 3,000 student files for payment. Well, it generated an error report. Well, there were, 12 students that had an error. Right. The report listed all 3,000 students, so they had to go find the error. We try to correct that as best, but it's still a PDF format. I think IT is of the opinion that it's an easier format to actually create an error report in. It's just more. It's just something quick and simple for them.
Right.
But we're going to talk with our IT division about that. I understand it would make it easier for y'all just to as an instant format, quick and go. We'll see what we can do for y'all. We'll definitely do that.
Thank you.
Raphael?
Yes, ma'am.
I apologize, showing my ignorance. Is this the same format that you get for this? Is it the same as you get for FADS?
No, I think it's different. I don't do the reporting specifically, but I work with that person, and I know for FADS, I think that's the one she really has a concern with, but because the reporting comes back and it's something she has to convert to even send to us for confirmation. So I think that's her main concern. But I know with the TEG reporting also, there's times when she has to do extra work with it to bring it over to our office to verify information. So
okay, one of the things that I'll mention to everybody, because we're talking about reporting, and is that just like you, we get in a queue for reporting resources. And for instance, the student verification form that would allow a student or you to go in and check, that programming request is in the queue. One of our problems is that just like everybody else, our agency doesn't have the resources to do them as quickly as we'd like. That doesn't mean we don't want to know about what needs to be done. So these kinds of suggestions are very helpful. And what I would suggest maybe is send it to us in writing and let us get it in the works. Whether it will be a year or 10 years before they can get to it, we don't know, but we ought to at least ask for it and try to move in that direction.
who do you want her to address that to? If I have her write
Go
it
ahead
down?
and send it to me.
Okay.
Okay, not like I'm the technical whiz kid on the block. My staff would verify that's not true, but I can get it to them. Thank you.
Well, cool. Anything else? Anybody? Any other suggestions or ideas, comments, anything? All right. Thank you all very much.
Okay, we are ahead of schedule, and it would seem I would like to suggest that we go ahead to lunch and come back at 12:30. That would probably let you get on the way home, heading home a little bit earlier this afternoon. Is that acceptable to you guys? Okay. As we said before, there are some maps outside on the table as you walk by that show local eateries. We are surrounded by haute cuisine. If you go out the front door and turn left, we have Luby's. Beyond, then that's probably the most haute that we get anywhere close. And then Wendy's, and then to the right is McDonald's and Taco Bell. But actually the map shows some good eateries, and so hopefully you can find something good to eat, and we will see you at 12:30. Thank you very much.
We're going to go ahead and resume and start off with information about the loan programs, and we have several representatives from LPO, and I'm going to let them do the introductions.
Thanks, Lynn. I appreciate that. Well, welcome to the loan originations portion of the program. My name is Davenbert. I wanted to just kind of go through and introduce everyone to our staff that we have here. We have a very small staff. We have 4 loan representatives that do all of the loan processing and assisting with questions and information from students and you all. So just wanted to kind of put a face with the voice that some of you may have been speaking with over your time. Amanda Rivera, she's been with us since 2008. She brought experience from campuses. I think she came from Angelo State, and she's also worked with many state agencies throughout the years. Myself, Davin Burt, I came from California. I worked at a few different campuses, UC Berkeley and a few other large campuses and small campuses in California, so I brought that experience with me to the coordinating board. Herbert McCarzo, who's going to be presenting today, he has been with us since 2004, I think, with the coordinating board. Yeah, and he also has experience with other state agencies in the state of Texas. And our elder statesman, Young Hee Lambert, she's been here a while. I'm not going to say how long she's been here, so I'll let her do that if she like, but she's been here a long time, has a ton of experience. I mean, Albert said in a previous presentation, she knows programs that are no longer, in existence. But I mean, she's just a wealth of information. I'm sure some of you, even you, people online, I'm sure have spoken with her throughout the years, and she's a great wealth of experience and information. And Albert Contreras, he's our program manager. He's the one that keeps us all focused, keeps us going, because we're a fun group. We enjoy each other. We enjoy our work. But, when it's time to take care of things, he makes sure that we're definitely on task, So that's our Loan Originations group, and I'm going to turn it over to Herbert right now.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be here with you guys to show you some great information that we were able to share with you right after lunch. I know I'm kind of glad we did that, because this is the most exciting part of the afternoon, just so y'all know, so we keep y'all awake with this great information. As we go through the presentation, as we go through the information, you're more than welcome at any point to ask any questions you may need. I'm sorry. Also, does anybody need copies of the presentation? If you don't have those in your booklet, we definitely have copies available. So just hold up your hand and we'll provide those to you. So again, as we're going through the presentation, you're more than welcome at any time to stop, raise your hand. Those of you who are online, definitely encourage you guys to send us some emails. I think the email has been displayed for you guys. So we have a moderator who will be raising her hand, so I'll be keeping my eye on her so we can see the online questions as well. So we will be available for that, definitely. We'll get those handouts passed out here. Okay. So we're going to start the afternoon off by talking about the state loan programs that we have available here at the THECB. We talk about the college access loan as well as the Be On Time loan. We're going to show you some really great features that the student has actually to go online and actually see status information. You're going to be pretty surprised to see that information. We're going to talk about some online allocation reporting that you guys have access to, as well as show you and demonstrate some change transactions that you can do online yourselves. So we'll definitely go through all of that information. Okay. The college access loan. This is a loan that students do not have to demonstrate financial need to receive the college access loan, and it's used to cover part of the expected family contribution from the student's family. However, the amount of the federal aid for which a student is eligible must be deducted from the cost of attendance in determining the actual amount of the college access loan. Okay. So in order for a student to be eligible for this college access loan, the student must be a Texas resident, be enrolled at least half-time, and meet the satisfactory academic progress within your institution, and receive a favorable credit. And we'll kind of talk about that a little bit in detail as well. The cosigner for the application must be at least 21 years of age, must have a regular source of income. The cosigner cannot be the borrower's spouse. That's sometimes a little tripped up there. We have to clarify that at sometimes. Not too much, but that's just something that we want to definitely mention. The cosigner, of course, must receive favorable credit, and that person must also be a U.S. citizen or a U.S. permanent resident. For the 2012-2013 year, the rate is at a 5.25 fixed rate. And for the repayment, it is a 6-month grace period at the time that the student fails to meet continuous enrollment. And for balances that are under $30,000, there is a 10-year repayment. And for those that are over 30, it is a 20-year. For the Be On Time, this is a loan that's provided to eligible Texas students, not at a no interest to attend colleges and universities here in the state of Texas. If the student does meet specific goals, the entire loan can actually be forgiven at the time of graduation. So for that person, that applicant must be a Texas resident or be entitled to pay in-school tuition. The person must meet they must meet one of the following, which is to graduate in the 2002-2003 year or later. The reason we put that year there is because that's when the Be On Time loan was actually created. So, of course, anyone who graduated prior to that wouldn't be eligible to receive the program information. So that academic year requirement or have earned an associate's degree from that point. The applicant must also have not received a bachelor's degree up to that point and be enrolled at least full-time. They also have to have completed the FAFSA and be eligible to receive federal financial aid in order to be eligible for that. So the annual amounts that were set for the 2012-2013 year for four-year institutions, it's at a $7,400 a year. For 2-year, it's $2,400. For technical colleges at $4,400, and of course all of them are subjected to the 3% origination fee at the time of processing. For the repayment, it is a 6 months grace period, and the loans are at a 15-year period. And again, we emphasize that if it does become a loan and it is something that has to be repaid, it's going to be done at a 0% interest rate. That's just the short of it on the two programs that we have. Any questions on that? Okay. So how many of y'all received calls from a student? I have no idea what the loan status is. I don't know what's going on. I haven't heard anything. Well, we're about to show you some really cool features. The student actually has access to go on to their account on hhloans.com and actually see pretty specific information about what is actually happening with their application. It's not information that you can see. It's a lot of the times indirectly we see it, but their information is very specific to them. So when they go online, they can view this information. So we're going to share that with you now. Talk about the required documents that the student would need in order to complete an application, their credit information, if that's applicable, the cosigner's information, and also the actual process status that they will see online. So depending on the status, depending on what's actually going on with that particular application, there's conditions that are going to make up the actual message that comes out. So it's pretty straightforward, as you're going to see here. If we're needing both the promissory note and the self-certification, or that we've actually received those items, it'll actually let them know promissory note received and self-certification received also. If one or the other item is actually missing, it'll actually indicate that we've received one, promissory note received, waiting on self-certification, and vice versa. So again, letting them know what we have received and also letting them know what we have not. And then if we've not received anything, it'll let them know as well, promissory note and self-certification form. We're still waiting for that information. For the student's credit, credit denied or student elected to opt out. Just so you'll know, when the student goes online, they have the option of having their credit pulled or opting out, meaning that they know that they don't have any credit and that they're not going to be evaluated with an approval. So they just opt out, and at that point, the system would designate them to a cosigner option there. So letting them know either if they have their credit pulled and they're not approved, or if they opt out, then the system would let them know that a cosigner is needed at that point. Again, the college access loan requiring a cosigner. If their credit is approved, it'll let them know that their credit is actually approved and that the cosigner is optional. Optional meaning that if they're approved and their cosigner is approved, they can have a 3% origination fee. So it'll let them know that there's options there, but that they're not required to receive one at that point. And the credit needs review. Basically what that means, if we're trying to evaluate credit for either a student or a cosigner, if they have an alert, if they have something that's stopping us from viewing that information, obviously we can't make the determination, so the system will let them know to contact our office. So again, we can't evaluate the credit, so we're letting them know that we need to hear from them in order to move forward from that point. So that's basically what that means, that we need further review. For the cosigner's information, again, pretty straightforward. We've evaluated the credit and it was an approved and the promissory note has been received, letting them know cosigner approved, promissory note received. For approved credit, but we haven't actually received the promissory note. If the cosigner went online, was able to complete some of the information online, but for whatever reason was not able to electronically sign, then we would need that physical document to be submitted into our office. So we've evaluated credit, but we haven't completed all their process because we need both. We need the credit to be approved, and we also need either electronic signature or a wet signature document to be submitted to our office. The credit denied, if the cosigner's credit evaluation comes up with a non-approval, it'll actually let them know not approved, and that we also need a new cosigner at that point. Okay. Credit needs review, same thing as the borrower. That credit can't be evaluated because of whatever is stopping it, the alert or the, just the stop that's not letting us actually evaluate that credit. That we've provided, cosigner provided, but not applied. What that basically means, when the borrower goes on, they're designating a cosigner. And what I mean by designate, they're basically a name and an email address of the person they want to be the cosigner. So the system then forwards an email to that person, alerting them to go online and apply. Now, if the student has actually provided that information, but the cosigner hasn't gone on and actually provided his information, or his or her information, it'll let them know that we're waiting for that information to be provided online, or if a physical document to be submitted to our office. Okay.
I have an online question.
Okay.
Who can see the cosigner information? Can the student?
The student can see whether or not their cosigner is approved. It is a separate process. The borrower goes online and submits their application, and the cosigner will go on and submit a separate kind of. It is, of course, part of the same application, but there are two different actions. So the borrower can see the result of the cosigner's information that he does online, as far as him being approved or not approved. He will be able to see that. Okay. All right. So, cosigner not provided. If the student opts out, or if their credit is not approved and they did not designate a cosigner, that's the result that will come out as far as the message. Let them know that we do need a cosigner in order for the application to proceed. Okay. All right. These are just the processing status information that they will also see. If we have missing or conflicting information, it could mean so many different things. We have duplicate references, if we're missing part of the address on their application, a lot of different things. But as you can see, it lets them know that there's some kind of error, and it also asks them to contact our office. Okay. If waiting for student or cosigner documents and our final review, we're still waiting. We're in the process of completing that application, but we're still waiting for information. And again, that could mean a lot of different things, but letting them know that we're still waiting for that information. Application pre-approved, of course, just for the college access loan. waiting for the schools to verify that application in order for it to take the next step to the approval process. And then the school allocation exhausted, funds currently not available, contact your school for options. If you find yourself that you've actually certified more loans than you have in your allocation, this is something that will happen. Obviously, when you certify an application, it automatically takes that deduction from your allocation amount. So if you find that you've actually certified much more than your allocation, then we have to rectify that situation. You do some deletions. It's a lot of different solutions, possible solutions that are there, but basically it lets the student know that the loan's not going forward because there is allocation issues at this point. It doesn't tell them allocation, but it tells them that there's currently not funds available. Okay, so this is what the student goes online, and this is the page that they actually see here, and then they'll actually click here for status to get to the actual status messages that are available to them online. And as we've just been reading, for the required documents in this particular example, promissory note and self-certification form have been received. The loan does require a cosigner. For the cosigner, we're waiting for the application and promissory note. And of course, the application is in process at this point. So you can see it's pretty straightforward, lets them know. And then even though there's a line there, you can see right at the bottom of there it says current as of, so it'll give them the actual current date of the information that's being provided to them. For the Beyond Time and the task, just letting them know that about the promissory note and self-certification. Of course, this is an accredited-based account, so it's going to let them know just about those two items, and then, of course, that the application is in process. So that kind of wrapped up the online part that they see. So now you have hopefully a little bit of knowledge on what they're looking at, and it's, as you can see, it's more than what you can see. But you guys do have reports that are available to you. So again, indirectly, you can see what the student may need by these reports, and so we're going to kind of go through that as well. Okay. So again, when you log on to your systems, you'll simply click on the report option there. Get to your school allocation, again, click again. And then come to this page. I'll stop here for just a minute just to clarify some information. When you do come up on this particular screen, keep in mind that the program year does automatically go to the current year. It defaults to the current year, 2012, 2013. So keep that in mind. We leave that option there. You can see that it has a drop-down arrow here. So if you need to view previous years for whatever reason, you have that availability of information. So keep in mind that when you do come up to this report, it'll come up to the current year. As you can see on the output options, you have 5 different options there, and they do all work. Our office does suggest that you use the activity report. That better to filter out when we sort and filter out information that you see on the report. So it works best when you use active reports. Okay. So you just do the run query, hit that run query option there, and you're actually into the reports here. Okay. So it seems like a lot of information on the left, the total allocations, disbursements, different categories that you can view different types of information. At the bottom, you'll see that there's legends that help you clarify the different kind of categories that are available there. The dollar amounts that you see here, when you actually click on those dollar amounts according to the category, you'll actually get to more specific information regarding student information for that particular, like I said, for that particular category. So clicking on those links will actually give you more detailed information. Okay. So again, this is just an example of one of the pages here, looking at the different sorting options that you have here. Now the down arrows are how you would get to that, to do some filtering and to get to the details of that information. And according to what you want to do and how you want to view the information, we definitely encourage you to play around in here, really, be free to move around and kind of get to know the system, and do that with confidence that you're not changing any of the data that's on the report. Okay. You're only changing how you actually view that. So you can hopefully, like I said, have a little confidence in going in there and really, detailing it to your specifications, to your needs in your particular office. Okay. So this particular report is the dispersed roster. This is how you view what is actually on its way to your office. The extract date is referring to our initiation of the EFT from the comptroller's office, and of course from that date is 3 days to delivery to your office. Okay. So again, as you can see, these down arrows are available on each of these sheets or each of the folders within the report, so you're able to again change the way you look at it, sort it however you'd like according to your needs. Okay. Pending future disbursements. This is actually referring to the fact that the student has gone online and accepted the final terms of the loan online. Okay. So just wanted to also let you know that particular portion of the application process is required to be done online. We send out the loan acceptance disclosure. The student has to have that by law. We send that to them via U.S. mail, but they must accept the terms online. There's no exceptions to that. There's no paperwork that they would submit or form as an option. The acceptance of the terms must be met or must be accepted online only. Okay, so that column there indicates that they have actually accepted that, and of course 11 days after that. Yes, sir.
My question pertains to whenever the loan terms accepted, whenever that section is blank and a student contacts me and they're checking on the status, and of course I know they're getting emails from you guys, and a lot of times they obviously don't read the email, so they contact me, and I see that they have to accept their loan terms, but when they go into their loan, it doesn't say you have to accept your loan terms. There's another phrase that's involved there. It's like something acceptance required, okay, something like that. So that, I'm wondering if there's a way to just kind of have that, get the terminology straightened out there, so if I see what's missing, I can tell them you need to go in and do this, because I'm seeing loan terms needs to be accepted, but that they don't see that. Okay.
When they do go online, if they have not accepted the terms of the loan, it'll actually say loan terms required, and it'll actually be a link. It'll just be a clickable. They click on it, and that's the simplicity of it. That by them clicking on that link, they're accepting the terms of the loan. Now, if they've done that, and I want to kind of back up, they've got to do the application process and the acceptance of these terms using Internet Explorer. If they use any other types of browsers, sometimes that causes issues. It gives them the impression that they've actually completed the information properly, but that information sometimes does not communicate with our system properly. So if they're accepting using Internet Explorer, it should accept it properly. The following, right away, it'll let them know loan terms accepted. It'll let them know. We'll actually tell them in words that they've actually gone on there and accepted. Of course, the following day is when it'll show up on this report, because it'll go through the run, and then the following day you'll see this information available to you as administrators. But that same day when they actually do the action, it's not going to be available to you till the following day. They see more information than you would. They actually have more access to their status, and we try to make it as clear as possible, as you can see, but they have the most up-to-date information that they can see on their actual account.
When they have to complete that last step, I forget what they have to click on there, but I just don't know. I don't remember offhand, but it says something required certification, something like that, which is in blue. And I know they just click on that, and that completes it. But
that's all that we do. It's pretty straightforward. There's nothing other than that. It's pretty simplistic to them to just be able to click on that particular link. And that's the process of accepting those terms. Now, again, they're accepting what we've sent them in the mail. The actual details and the actual numbers are all provided to them in the paperwork that we provided to them in the mail. But they're only accepting. They don't see the terms. They don't see all the details of the application. They're only accepting the terms online. Okay, and it's just a simple click that they would do. Okay. Online for the pending disbursements need documents. I mean, along the same lines of what you're mentioning here, I mean, this report mentions what they have received, what we've acknowledged receiving and processed, and what may be lacking for that particular application. In this particular example, you're seeing that the promissory note has been received, and the terms of the application have also been accepted online, but we're missing the self-certification. You can see that by there's no information there, no date, no indication of a why. So, again, this report will show you what is here and what isn't here as compared to what they're seeing. So I think we have a question online.
Ooh. How do students know when their self-certification has been accepted?
Oh, well, it's part of the application process. So we receive the promissory note and the self-certification form. It is part of the same application. So it'll let them know if we've seen, like I think we, in the reporting area, in the messages, it'll let them know promissory note received, needs self-certification form. So it'll actually let them know. We also occasionally send out letters individually for students who are lacking stuff, but again, the information is available to them online by simply clicking onto their information, logging on with their identification numbers or their username and password, and able to see that information. Okay. So again, this is a good tool for you guys to see that information indirectly from your reports, looking onto this report, seeing what the student is still lacking. The online uncertified pre-approved applications, this is a pretty useful tool. When you see the names on this particular report, you're getting verification that we've received all documents and that we've verified that all requirements are met up to this point. Your certification will be one of the final approvals on the application. Okay, so when you look at this report, you're actually seeing that a student has gone on, completed their information, submitted all documentation to us. We've audited and we've processed all that information, and that at this point is waiting for your certification. Okay. Now I kind of wanted to just compare and contrast this report to the uncertified applications in process, because you have both those options. You have both of those reports that are available to you. So the uncertified applications in process are exactly what they sound like. They're applications that are still waiting. We're still waiting for some part of the application process to be completed. Okay, so obviously it's not completed because we haven't received and processed that information. When you come here and you actually focus your allocation amounts or your certification amounts on these loans and these students, you have more of an assurance that your monies are going to go forward to completion. Okay, once you certify these applications, the only step that will be required at that point would be the student to go online and accept the final terms. Okay, which would be available to them the following day, but obviously we send out the loan acceptance disclosure the following day as well as far as the paperwork. But you focusing on these particular names on this uncertified pre-approved applications, again, assures that your monies are actually going to go forward. It I think also can alleviate those possible allocation errors that may come up, okay, by just doing these applications that you know are going to go forward. Okay. Any questions on that reporting? So we're going to go into what you guys can do. As administrators, you have the ability to do some changes within the loans. So we're going to look at that. We're going to look at some full cancellations as well as some partial cancellations that you're able to do. Some reductions and increases within the loan amount that was originally approved. We're going to look at moving some dates forward and backwards for the disbursements. And keep in mind that due to the federal regulations, the first disbursement cannot be changed. That's part of the right to cancel for the student. So the first disbursement on a loan cannot be changed online for you guys. we're going to look at some loan cancellations and also some loan period changes as well. So when you go online, look up a particular student, this is what you'll see. I want to kind of point out the fact that when you do come up to this screen, you see this box here, it's already going to be engaged on the application tab. These are two different tabs, application and loans. So I just kind of wanted to just make sure you understood that. When you first pull it up, it's going to come up with applications. Obviously, we're talking about loan changes, so you want to just click on the loan tab. What happened to my little button there? Anyway, the loan tab, that's right there, and you'll come up with this, with the link to the update loan tab that you can actually click on that and actually get to that information to make those changes. Okay. So this is what you'll come up with, some of the demographics for the student. On the left, you'll just simply click on pre-dispersed cancel/change and get to the screen where you actually are able to make some of those changes. Now, keep in mind that this is a $10,000 loan, so that's something you do have to keep in mind as you're making the changes. We're going to do a full cancellation on this particular record. So what you would do on the amounts, you would change those to 0.00. Also, let me stop myself on these little tabs here, these little blue tabs that you have here. You can actually click on those and get a little bit of guidance on the format or a little bit of information on the category that you're actually trying to change there. So for the amount, you wouldn't leave it blank. You would put it 0.00. You would have to have a little amount there. Put the date that you're canceling, which is the actual date you're actually making that action, and then the amount that you're canceling, $5,000 each. So these are obviously two $5,000 disbursements. You're canceling the entire loan, so you would just clarify that with two different disbursements, $5,000 each. Okay. Hit the save button. Now, if you hit the save button and something comes up, it's actually going to let you know. If there's some kind of discrepancy, if there's some kind of format that's off, it'll let you know, and you just basically just pay attention to that information and correct that, and then hit the save button. It will not hit the save button until everything is properly submitted, and that's when it's going to allow you to go forward at that point. Okay. So again, hitting the save button, and you'll come up with this screen showing you that again this is a pending change, showing you the first and second disbursement having a canceled status. And then the following day, you actually see something like this where you actually have the cancellations confirmed. Keep in mind that when you do change transactions or any other kind of action online, it has to come and communicate with our mainframe system, and of course then that communicates back with the online system that you have. So the following day, you will get confirmation of the changes that you actually submitted. Okay, so that's why I was pointing out that it shows pending change. The following day, you'll actually get the confirmation of the actual change that you've actually submitted. Okay? So again, that was a full cancellation that was done there. Okay. So again, this is a $10,000 loan. We want to transact a partial disbursement cancellation. So we're seeing that this one is broken up the same way, $5,000 disbursements. We want to change the amount to $2,500 on each disbursement, the date that you're actually transacting that action, and then the amount that's being canceled, again, $2,500. So the math has to obviously match up, and when you hit the save button, again, if there's some kind of discrepancy, if there's some kind of amount that's off, it'll let you know to go back and actually look at that information. So again, just lowering it down half, $2,500 each for each disbursement. Getting to your screen initially, again, pending changes that are happening here for the first and second disbursement, showing $2,500 each on those. And then the following day, getting the confirmation of the change transaction going through. So for reductions and increases, this is pretty simple. Again, the $10,000 amount that we're looking at here, you're basically just changing the amounts for you want $4,000 to be released on the first disbursement and $6,000 on the second disbursement. And you would just simply put those numbers in there like that. There's not going to be a need to put a date. There's not going to be a need to do any kind of canceled amount because you're not canceling anything. You're actually just moving the money around. And so, again, it's just a matter of just simply the math, just moving the numbers around to whatever you want the disbursements to actually look like. Okay. Now, I also want to point out that you're able to do some hold release. So these drop downs here will actually show that you're actually able to put these disbursements on hold. So you can do a couple of different things on this particular screens. And so keep that in mind. Again, you have those options and you're able to, if you just feel like you just want to hold it until you clarify some information, whatever the case may be, then the system allows you to do those kinds of actions. So you can put it on hold, and then whenever you do resolve that issue, simply put it on release, and it'll actually continue to process at that point. Okay. Just another example of a canceled process here. You have the canceled loan option on the left of your menu here. You just click on cancel loan, and then all this would take is just you inputting a date that you're actually doing that transaction. Now, is there a difference between, I showed you a full cancellation where we had 2 disbursements and we canceled both of them? It's the same result here. If you know you're going to cancel the entire loan and there's not going to be any discrepancy as far as canceling one or any question about that, you can come to this screen here and just cancel the entire loan. So you have that option here. Again, both of those ways, both of those methods do work. So we do have another question online.
What happens if I do not see my disbursement cancellation or reduction the next day? Will I get an error report or a message?
Well, you always have information available to you for that status of that particular application. So if you don't see that your transaction has been successful, then you definitely want to keep in touch with us, contact us if you need to. It's also important that you as well utilize Internet Explorer when you do access this information, when you try to transact these actions. Internet Explorer is the one that works best, communicates best with our system. So it's important to remember that when you do. We have confidence that it does work, but obviously there's those situations. Sometimes we have to look at those individually. But definitely when you go on there, you see, hopefully with this information, that you see that there's pending, as far as a pending cancellation or a pending change transaction. The following day you get that result. So if you don't get that result, then you definitely want to be in contact with us as well. Okay. Okay. Just some more basic stuff that you guys can do online for update loan periods is something that you also can do. So you're going to see that there's a number of small things you can do here. Obviously, the loan period start and end date you can change. Again, these buttons here are available if you need any kind of guidance on the formatting or the information for that particular category. You can see here also that you can change the grade level of that particular student and also the anticipated graduation date. So this information screen is available to change all that information. And then we're also asking at that point for you to put a school certification date. Obviously, you've already certified this information, but when you put a date here, you're basically verifying that you're updating that information. So a date would need to be provided on that particular area right there. And of course, submit, and it'll go through for that information. Okay. So we've been talking about loans and how you can see that you can change that information. When it is an application, it's something that you may need to contact our office in order to make those changes. So we have an online email system that you guys can access and send us information pertaining to particular students. The information that you do send is encrypted, so you're safe and you're okay to send complete student information, including complete social security numbers. When we send the information back, we do encrypt. We do send only partial because we just want to make sure it's secure. But again, you sending the information is okay. When you send that information to us, the entire loan staff will actually get that, and will process that information. And the good thing about it is, one of the good things about it is that you'll have that paper trail. So if you want to send information, you will get a response back to show that we've actually completed your inquiry or your request to make a change. So this is what it looks like on the main page on hhloans.com. You'll simply click on Contact Us, and then actually get to where you're actually able to generate an email to us. Now, this is a drop-down menu here, and for you, for schools, school staff, request, application, or allocation information. And then, even though it means covering up the information, this block here is where you actually put, your message and submit that to us. And then we'll, like I said, we'll get to that and we'll actually be able to respond back to you in regards to your question or inquiry. Okay. That was pretty much it. We're definitely available to you guys. We're happy to provide this information. It helps us to let you know what's going on with us, and obviously on your side, seeing what needs you have in order to actually provide those. Yes, sir.
Let me ask this question. This is more on the back end than the front end, and it's not the loan processing, but the repayment. What is the responsibility of institutions for students who are in default with your loans? It's been my impression that we are not to release transcripts. The Department of Ed put out guides by schools withholding transcripts for students who are in default, saying we are required to allow the student to review their transcript, which means we give them an unofficial copy. We just can't give them the official copy. And knowing it's been years, I've been under the impression that we are not to release a transcript to a student if they're in default with the coordinating board. And so I'm just wondering, maybe there ought to be clarification go out to the schools of what that role may or may not be as far as withholding transcripts for students who are in default.
I don't know. Do you have some on the allocate?
I believe, David, that the coordinating board's guidelines are, when we send out the notifications on transcript holds, we're speaking of official. But we'll get clarification for that and then drop you a line.
Great. Thanks, Albert.
Okay. Well, thanks for staying up with me. we continue to be available to you online, on the phone. Definitely keep in touch with us, and we're more than happy to help you along in your process as well, okay? Thank you so much.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're getting ready to start the drive-through. We used to call them drive-bys and decided that wasn't a good idea. This is where we fill you in with little bits of information about things that we couldn't justify a full presentation on, but that are things that we feel we want to share with you for sure. The first part of this will be dealing with the Texas College Work Study Program, and our presenter is Renee Jones.
Hello, my name's Renee Jones, and today I'll be going over the Texas College Work Study Program. I have to remember to breathe. I don't know why I'm letting you guys make me nervous, but today I will be talking about the eligibility requirements, the Title III, Title V waiver, the transferability of funds, and the reports and their due dates. The purpose for Texas College Work Study is to provide financially needy students with employment while attending an eligible institution. Okay. In order for your student to qualify for Texas College Work Study, they must be a Texas resident, enrolled at least half-time of a full course load, show financial need, and be registered with Selective Service or either be exempt from that requirement. If your student is an athletic scholarship recipient, if they're enrolled in a seminary or any other program leading to license to preach for a religious sect, or an undocumented or international student, if they're unable to legally work in the United States, they cannot qualify for Texas College Work Study. If the federal government has issued your school a Title III or Title V waiver, and that exempts your institution from the 25% matching requirement, the state will also honor that waiver. Just send a copy of that waiver to grantinfo@thecb.state.tx.us. If you're a nonprofit employer, you must match 25% of a work-study student's earnings and 100% of the other employee benefits. If it's a for-profit employer, they must match 50% of an employee's student wages and 100% of the other employee benefits. If your institution participates in Texas Grant, TEG, and Texas College Work Study, you can transfer 10% or $10,000 between these programs. Just remember that the 10% or $10,000, it comes from the program, it comes from the account from which the money is coming from. Just email the program specialist letting us know that you want to transfer those funds, and as long as you're not exceeding your maximum amount, we will honor that request. Lastly, I want to go over the reports. The February progress report is due February 20th, and that gives the coordinating board a snapshot of how your institution is using your funds. It lets us know how much you have encumbered, how much you're going to release, and any additional funds your institution can use during reallocation. You're very familiar with that one, huh, Dave? And lastly, it's the year-end report, which is due June 15th. If that date happens to fall on a weekend, then your report is due that following Monday. On that report, it lets us know how much money your school has issued, the number of students awarded, and any excess funds that you spent. Keep in mind that the year-end report and the financial aid database report, they have to reconcile. I know a lot of you probably have received emails from me here recently, and those numbers are not etched in stone. I'm just sending them to you as a courtesy so we can try to make sure our numbers match. So when you submit your financial aid database report, it'll be easier. It'll be a smooth ride. That's it. Are there any questions? Please, no questions. Thank you.
Hey, as I mentioned earlier in the introduction, I want to just give you some information about our revised GNSP website that's available to you as a resource for information. It used to be, this is the address of the website, and I hope you're taking advantage of the website. Does everybody know what I'm talking about, the GNSP website? We've changed it up a little bit, trying to make it more user-friendly and put information out there that you can really use. So if you have something that you think would be beneficial to have out there that we haven't thought of, please let us know, because we would love to know that and we'll get it out there. But this is the address. It used to be that when you went into the website, you would have to put in your FICE code and then a password, and we thought, why are we making them do that just to get into the website? So we decided that we would take that off so you can just go directly to this address and get right into the information that you need to see. However, if you take advantage of the part where, and you don't do that as much at an independent institution as a public institution does, on the public side, like for Texas Grant and TEOG, we have verification screens set up where they can go in to look at students' eligibility for a continued award in those programs. As Raphael mentioned earlier, we have yet to get that going for TEG. But once that's going for TEG, there will be, you will have to put in your FICE code and your password in order to access that information about student-specific information. But right now, just to get into the website, you no longer have to use the FICE code or the password. This is what you'll see. It's the menu when you go into the GNSP website. The very top part, we've called it News You Can Use, and what that is just basically to tell you maybe something that's new to look for in the rest of the website. Things that are upcoming and you will want to look for when they're available. It's just kind of like a news flash area just to give you some quick information. The program-specific information section under TEG, for instance, you will see your program guidelines. You'll see allocation information. Lots of, what else is under there, Raphael? You've got, is the needs survey out there, or have you yet to put that out there? Okay, there's different information about the TEG program as well as the other programs if you're interested in looking at that. One of the things that's near and dear to my heart that's out there are the new Q&As that we started doing about it. It's almost been a year since we started doing Q&As. And we send out a Q&A, and it's actually questions that are coming in from the various schools about the different programs, etc. So I put together a compilation of those Q&As and send those out at least once a month, if not more often. And we try to organize it by program. And then we will post all the ones that we've already sent out, the Q&As, here on our website, and you can go out here and see a copy of it anytime you would like to see a copy of it. And then there's a cross-reference that this arrow is pointing to, where if you want to see if there's been a question in any of the publications about a specific topic on TEG, for instance, you can go to the cross-reference and look under TEG and see the different questions that have been asked in all of these publications, just to see if it's already out there, so that you can get your answer more quickly that way. But if you have a question about your program or anything that you would like to get an answer for, please send it to us, and we'll also include it on the Q&A if we can. This is another section. This is where we're going to be posting, and if you would, well, this is probably where you went to if you went out to get the handouts for the presentations today. We made them available out there on the website. It will also be where we will have different webinars. I think the end-of-year webinars for the end-of-year reports were out here and posted. If you wanted to go out there and listen to a webinar, it's just a taped webinar. It's not a live webinar, obviously, but you can go look at the taped webinar. There are several webinars that we're currently working on. We thought we were going to have them ready back in the summer, and it's funny how things just keep kind of getting in our way, and we can't seem to get them out there as quickly as we wanted to. But the ones in red that say coming soon, well, not just red, but several of them say coming soon, are webinars that we're currently working on. And these webinars, say for instance the TEG training webinar, would be a good webinar maybe for your staff. If you have a new staff person that's dealing with the TEG program, this might be a good series of, and they're not long, they're maybe 5-10 minutes in length, and there may be a series for TEG, like 3 or 4 in the TEG program, that you can listen to or have your staff listen to. So we're hoping this is going to be a good tool for you to use. If there is something you would like to have a webinar on, please let us know, and we'll see what we can do and get that out there for you or your staff. And I think that's it for the website. Any questions about the website? Okay. I think we're ready to talk about the financial aid database report.
We now get to talk about everyone's most favorite report of all times, the financial aid database report. We figured out the best way to give you good information is to have Tanya Trevino, who is way down in the trenches on this report and has been since the beginning of it. And she will give you a sense of how this thing works and hopefully get it easier for you this year to get your reports certified. So, Tanya?
Good afternoon, everyone. Are there any new financial aid folks that are not aware of the financial aid database report? Okay, we have one. So you will quickly learn what you're in store for. And nobody give him any scary stories, please. The financial aid database report is a report of all students who were enrolled at your institution. This is currently we are collecting students for the 2011-2012 fiscal year. These are students that completed a FAFSA or TASFA, even if they did not receive aid, and any student that was enrolled and received any merit aid. So any merit aid, non-need-based aid, exemptions and waivers, and they may not have completed a FAFSA or TASFA. You use the SFTP software to submit a fixed length text file to us, and you use the SFTP software to retrieve your edit report as well. The deadline for the financial aid database report is December 3rd. This is the date that your report must be submitted error-free, reconciled to your CB year-end reports, and to the CBM 001 report, and certified. The report times are listed here. It is run 7 days a week, so it includes weekends. The first reporting time is at 6 a.m., and the last reporting time is at 6 p.m. So if you submit your file after 6 p.m., it will be processed on the 6 a.m. run. Please be aware that there are several reports that are being submitted right now. All of the CBM reports are being submitted, as well as the financial aid database report. So there will be times when our server will be slow in getting your edit report to you and processing it. If you do not receive a file receipt confirmation, usually within 30 minutes to an hour, please notify us. That way we can check on it to make sure nothing else was wrong. Don't assume once your file has been submitted to us that we've received it. And the same goes for the edit report. If you don't receive your edit report after the post date, which is the last column, please contact us. You can also go onto our website at the address listed to see the status of your report. This will let you know if you still have errors or if you're certified. A couple of things to remember when you submit your file is once you submit your file through the SFTP software, you must disconnect promptly after you see that your file was successfully transferred to us. Make sure only one person at your institution is logged into the SFTP server at one time. Also, do not log into the SFTP server at the 3-minute or the 33-minute time after the hour. Our server automatically synchronizes itself at those times, so once you submit a file, it could automatically be deleted. And the last one is also if your institution submits the CBM, which CBM 001, CBM 008, etc., those are being submitted at the same time right now as the FAD report. So acknowledgments or the file receipt confirmations are sent out to the institutions, but if your institution is submitting several reports at one time, then the files will get processed, but you won't get the actual file receipt confirmation until we receive all your reports. But if more than 45 minutes, like I said, has passed, then please notify us and we'll check on it. The generic email address is where your file receipt confirmation and your edit reports will be sent. In April and May, we sent out an email testing those generic email addresses that we had on file. There are a couple of institutions that we had not received a acknowledgement back from. So if you did not receive that email, please let me know so that we can make sure that we do have your generic email address on file. Without that confirmed, you won't receive your file receipt confirmation or your edit reports. The flow of the financial aid database report: your institution submits the entire file by SFTP. The file receipt confirmation is then sent to the institution's generic email address. Our computer then performs its edit checks. Then the edit report notification is sent again to the generic email address. Your institution receives the edit report through the SFTP server, and it's available in the output, the FADS output folder that's in the SFTP server. If you have errors or have any students that are listed as unmatched to your CBM 001 report and the FADS, then your institution will need to correct the errors or reconcile the reports and then resubmit your entire file. And your entire financial aid database report must be submitted every time you correct any errors. If you had no errors or any unmatched students, then you'll receive the program and demographic summary reports, and these are in Excel format. They will be sent so that you can make sure your programs that you submit year-end reports to the CB reconcile. If everything reconciles, then you can request your certification. We will then send you the certification for you to complete and send back to us. And that's a two-step process. So you must request your certification when you have no errors and everything reconciles, and then submit your certification once we send it to you. If your programs do not reconcile and you have to correct either your FADS or your CB year-end reports, then you'll have to resubmit your FADS file again. If you're needing to correct your FADS file, you'll need to submit it again in its entirety. If you're only correcting your year-end reports and your FADS is correct, then you won't have to do anything further. But we will send you a new program and summary report, whether you revise your year-end reports or your FADS file.
Tanya, would it be possible for us to get a list of the generic addresses and send those out to the schools to make sure they know how to acquire the information that you're sending out to them?
Send out a mass email of all the generic email addresses, or
could you generate a list of those addresses by school and have us share them with the schools so they know how to get it? That might be a good way to help those who are new or have had turnover know where to go to get the information.
Yes.
Okay.
A couple of things that have changed for this year, or things that we just want to put your attention on. Alpha and numeric characters are still being accepted for the Social Security number and ID fields. Social Security number field is field 1D, and the ID field is field 36. The new federal race and ethnicity codes are still being continued for this year, and they follow the new guidelines. So field 15 is used for the Hispanic question, yes or no. 16A through G is used for the race fields. You must make sure you do complete 15 and 16 simultaneously. So you'll either indicate a student Hispanic, yes or no, and put in the race for 16A through G. Number 3, match FADS and CBM 001. This is continued for 2012. From last year, you will see that you had a list of students that did not match between the two reports. The students that did not match, you must use an appropriate code under field 5. And that code is just designating why that student did not match. Once you do code those students, they do fall off that list. And we'll get into more detail on the codes on the next slides. We did add extra options under the unmatched field, which is field 5. We gave you a little bit more options on that one to try to accommodate every situation. Number 5, the tuition exemption and waivers fields, which is field 6 through 11. 6 through 11 is now mandatory for all public institutions. They have to use those fields to report their students' tuition exemptions and waivers. Field 29 is being used solely for private institutions. So you will not have to worry about using 6 through 11. But you must have zeros in those fields as fillers. When your FADS and your CBM 001 report your students do not match between both reports, these are the codes that must be used. We did add a code 11 at the very bottom, which is other reason not listed above, but you must send an override request to us letting us know the situation of why that student did not match and the reason why they did not match. For all students, when you first submit your FADS report, you list those students as 00 in that field, unless you know the code right off of hand as to why they're not going to match. Then you can go ahead and populate that. Again, when the code is used, your students will not appear on the list. Overrides. In the case when you have errors that are correct, you will need to send us something in writing, letting us know the reason for the override. You can email this statement to me directly and include the student's last 4 digits of their social, You can either include the data element that it's appearing for the error, or you can include the error message itself and then the reason for the override. Once I have applied the override, I will send you an email letting you know that the students have been overridden. And at that case, in that situation, your edit report will then appear as having no errors, and that's when you will receive your summary reports. The certification process. Once you receive no errors, you will receive a summary report for your program and your demographic information. They will come to you in an email as an Excel spreadsheet. It will also include year-end report data. And those are programs that we receive year-end reports from you. The programs must reconcile to your financial aid database report. You will receive a summary report each time your report is error-free. So even if you're submitting several times to correct your year-end reports, your FADS report, so every time you become error-free, you'll automatically receive the summary reports. I know there are a couple of institutions that are error-free right now, and we are working on the summary reports, tweaking them up a little bit because we had to change our system. So we should hopefully have that done within a couple of days to be able to send them out so you can start your reconciliation. When you do your reconciliation, you're either going, if your programs do not match, you're going to have to either correct your FADS report if your year-end reports are correct, or correct your year-end reports if your FADB is correct. If you have to correct your year-end reports, that is going through the program text and the Grants and Special Programs website, Grants and Special Programs staff in order to revise any year-end reports. If your FADS is incorrect, then you will need to make the necessary corrections to the student records and then resubmit your file. The programs that we have that we collect year-end reports for are TEG, TEOG, Texas Grant, Texas College of Work Study, and Top 10%. I believe at this time the verification of the year-end reports are being sent by the Grants and Special Programs staff to the institutions so that we can make sure we do have the year-end reports that you reported to us. And that is what your FADS needs to match to. When all of your programs have been reconciled, all of your students have been coded or overridden, then you must request a certification. And the request for certification is included at the bottom of the email that is sent with your reconciliation reports. Once you submit your request, then I will send you the actual certification, which will then need to be completed and emailed back to me. Once I receive it, then your institution will be considered done. It is a little difficult to be able to reply to the email and say, I've received your certification, so that's why we included the website where you can check your status to see if your report has been certified. We have created a specific email box for the financial aid database report for any questions. It's the FADB@THECB. This is monitored daily, and any questions you have are forwarded to the appropriate person. And this is whether you have questions about program specific, like if a student falls under a specific residency status, then it'll be forwarded to the appropriate person. If you have a question specifically about where is my file, then it's sent to me. So it is monitored daily. And please be aware that right now, we're dealing with 146 institutions. Email is always the best way to contact us. And it also helps us keep a log of the questions and answers so that we can share them with everyone else. Like Lynn mentioned earlier, we have the Q&A. So we're updating the Q&A with any questions that you have. Any questions? Great.
Thank you, Tanya. I'll admit that I was sitting over there biting my fingernails because we're running a bit earlier and I wasn't sure she would get here on time and then I would have to give her presentation. And I assure you, you got more information than if I had been the one giving it to you. But there are some things that I'd like to share with you about the financial aid database report that, because even hearing all of this, probably one of the main questions you have in the back of your head is, why do we do it? And the main reason is that it's statutorily required. It's in the Appropriations Act as something colleges have to do. But there are better reasons for that than simply that it's required. The data that you submit, both for TEG and for all of the other programs that you participate in, help us create a profile of the aid that's available to Texas students. We, on a daily basis, answer questions from the legislature, from other states, from individual institutions who are trying to see what's going on, how this piece fits in with all of the rest of the financial aid that's out there. Last year, in 2011, and I speak in terms of last year because for FADS, we haven't done 12 yet, so last year, FADS time is 2011. This is the report that was generated from the FADS report. And it's approximately 160 pages long. There may be 25 pages, 28 pages of text, which is kind of a verbal description of what we have found in the data. But then all of the rest of it are tables of information about how these pieces fit together in this puzzle. In 2011, over 870,000 students received some kind of aid in Texas. And approximately, and that's more than 60% of the students enrolled. The amount of money that they receive through all of these resources is over $9 billion. So, among other things, if you show these numbers to your administration, it might help you show that you're involved in very, very big business when you work in financial aid. I meant to have the link to give to you as to how to access this and download it if you want to. But what I'll do is I'll give it to Raphael and ask him to email it to you through his TEG distribution list. Because even if you don't need the information a lot, I find you often will get questions that will help you answer. Among other things, it's a really good way to get data to compare your information to other comparable institutions. Within the book is one table that takes every institution and every program that's reported and gives the reported information, number of students, number of dollars. So, for instance, for TEG, you could see what the other institutions have reported. If you're looking at Pell Grants, it would be in there. One of the beauties of this report that we didn't have before we got into the FADS report is that we had resource information, we didn't have cost information. So there was no sense of how we were doing and meeting the need of students. So by having cost and resources in the same space, we're able to get to a lot more analysis. This is what we need. We can get a sense of the balance between loans and grants and whether that's going up or down or where it's moving over time. It is really a good resource, and I hope that you find opportunity to use it. Like I said, we'll send out the link and you can download it if you wish. As I said, we use it almost daily to give statistics to the legislature and other people. Ken Pond, who is the one who's been running around with the microphone, is the one who does a great deal of our data analysis and generates a lot of these reports. And I want to say thank you to him. The other thing that we use these numbers for is making projections of what will need to occur in the future. When we have a legislative session coming up, as we do, This information is used a great deal to estimate how much money we need in this program to take care of this percent of the eligible population. Again, the fact that we pick up all students getting any kind of aid or submitting the FAFSA gives us information about people who are eligible for this program but didn't get any. Now, sometimes it's because they didn't complete the FAFSA, they didn't do the verification. We recognize that they're legitimate or they're student-controlled reasons why that didn't happen, but it also is because there's not enough money, and getting a sense of what's available and what isn't available is really helpful. When we have a legislative session, and we have one coming up this spring, one of the things that members of my staff, Lynn and Connie and I, get involved in is what they call fiscal notes. And if there is a bill introduced that has to do with higher education, we have to estimate either the cost or the savings to the state if that bill gets passed. As you can imagine, you can be thinking, oh my gosh, how many sunspots are there on this day in order to get to that number? This wonderful little book and these statistics has probably improved our accuracy in those estimates, significantly. It certainly, even though I already had gray hair, it kept me from losing my hair in the process of just pulling it out. I've got some basis for doing some of these projections, and that's really, really good. So it is a pain in the rear to do. It's a lot of work for you and for our staff. But the data is used. It's not going into a black hole. And one of the things we've talked about that we would love to eventually get to do is have this information where it's accessible to you, where you can download some of the tables and work with them. We're not there yet, but it's a goal that we have to try to make this information more available to you. Any questions about the FADS report? I know Lynn's question was why do I call it FADS report? And I have no idea. It's the FADB. I misspell it. Okay. The other thing I wanted to mention is that I believe St. Mary's is one of the schools that has submitted their file and cleared all errors. Is that correct? Well. Oh, okay, yes. They found an error in our edits, which will clean it up for when the rest of your reports come in. So being an early bird helps us clean up the data. But congratulations on being where you are. Thank you for helping us get it right.
St. Edward's is done.
St. Edward's is done. Okay,
yes.
That's good to hear.
They're waiting on their reconciliation reports. Okay. So some institutions have really been on top of it this year, and the more you can do that, the more we appreciate it. Is there anything else I need to say? Okay, I believe we are going to finish early. Can y'all handle that, do you think? Is there anything that we have not covered today that you would like to bring up and discuss at this time? Okay, I have one really, really important thing to tell you. When you go out of this parking lot, watch right and left, because from the right you have pedestrians on the sidewalk, and you're always looking left for the traffic. It can get very dicey under those circumstances. Be careful, be safe going home. Thank you so much for coming in. We would like to recycle your things. Oh, most important, your evaluations. Please, please, please do your evaluation before you leave and turn it in. You can just put it on, let's put it on one of these chairs over here. It will help us make the next workshop better and know how we did today. Everyone have a copy of the form? And those of you who are at home or at the office, if you would download it, complete it, and send it in to us, we would greatly appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for your day and your attention. Have a nice trip home.